the audience that the Commission does not tolerate any disruption or outbursts of any kind, to please silence any mobile devices that may sound off during these proceedings. And when speaking before the Commission, if you care to, do state your name for the record. I'd like to take roll at this time. Commission President Fong.
Here.
We do expect Commission Vice President Wu, Commissioner Antonini.
Present.
Commissioner Hillis. Here. Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Moore.
Here.
And Commissioner Richards. Commissioner Richards is here. He'll be joining us shortly. Commissioners, first on your agenda is consideration of items proposed for continuance. Item 1, case number 2015-00180 PCA, noise regulations relating to residential uses near places of entertainment. Building Administrative Planning and Police Code amendments is proposed for continuance to March 19th, 2015. Item 2 for case number 2014-00257 CUA at 1008 Larkin Street. Conditional use authorization is proposed for continuance to March 19th, 2015. Items 3A, B, and C for case numbers 2013.0973 CV and X at 150 Van Ness Avenue. Downtown project authorization, conditional use authorization, and variance are proposed for continuance to April 2nd, 2015. Item 4 for case number 2014.001033 PCA, Administrative and Planning Code Amendments, amending regulation of short-term residential rentals and establishing fee, amendment to the Administrative Code, is proposed for continuance to April 2nd, 2015. Items 5A and B for case numbers 2013.1521 D, D, and V at 22 Ord Street, discretionary review and variance are proposed for continuance to May 14th, 2015. Items 6A and B for case numbers 2013.1522 D, D, and V at 24 Ord Court, discretionary review and variance are proposed for continuance to May 14th, 2015. And finally, Commissioners, item 7 for case number 2013.1223 D at 2139 Taraval Street, discretionary review is proposed for indefinite continuance.
Is there any public?
I do have 2 speaker cards for item 7.
Okay, great. In addition, is there any public comment on any of the items proposed for continuance? I'll
yes.
call, I'm sorry, David Hansberry and Mr. Tebow.
And I'd like to remind members of the public that this is your public testimony should be regarding the proposed continuance, not the project itself.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Paul Hansberry. Thank you for hearing my comments. I'm here to protest the indefinite continuance on grounds that the interpretation of the code seems to me to be a bit skewed. There are specific regulations in the code about medical cannabis dispensaries. It's such a unique use, and it's so different from any other use that there are specific things in the code that mandate a discretionary review. The project architect got a phone call a week ago saying that it was going to be taken off the calendar because it requires a conditional use. And they cited a number of different things that are very, very obscure. The things that are very apparent and specific are still in the code after the resolutions that were cited, stating that it does indeed require a discretionary review. If you look at the tables, I have all the paperwork here. I've been doing research for all week on this, trying to get my arms around why this is happening. The code, this ordinance was passed while Carmen Chu was the supervisor. Aaron Starr was the legal analyst that was in charge of, he was the staff contact, and it was passed in July of 2002, the ordinance was ratified. None of the language that pertains to this particular project made it to the ordinance. However, this has been, I don't know why, it's been, no other medical cannabis dispensary has ever been tasked with this. I got a email. I started an email chain, and Mr. Starr did try to put a little lipstick on this pig by saying that if we had not caught this and gone forward with the DR hearing, your approval would have been invalid and you would have to go back to the commission for a conditional use. Which begs the question, Waterfall Wellness, which would fall under this conditional use category, the highly contested Excelsior, Mission Organics, Tree Med, and Green Cross, this was never even thought of or addressed during all of that. Why is this dispensary being targeted for this? Greg Shep wants to open this dispensary. He's always played by the rules. He wants to open a dispensary that focuses on different cannabinoid profiles that are non-psychoactive or less psychoactive, targeting specific illnesses. If this is granted to this man, this would be the very first medical cannabis dispensary of its kind in San Francisco with that as its main focus. There are other dispensaries that have some of those products, but it's not their main focus. I think it's extremely unfair. Commissioner Avalos, with the proximity, codified very clearly what was going on. This is
Thank
not
you, sir.
in the
Your
code.
time is up.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Susan Tibone?
Commissioners, good afternoon. I'm Susan Tibben. I've had the honor of speaking to you before. I am very, very concerned about the irregularity of an indefinite continuance of this proposed Terraville dispensary. As a former civics teacher at Lincoln High School for many years, I have many, many friends, many contacts, a life in the Sunset, although my residence is not in the Sunset. My piano teacher in the Sunset uses a non-psychoactive medical cannabis spray, as do I, for severe arthritis. I was very, very surprised to attend a community meeting last week at the police department and hear that former Supervisor Chu had apparently promised her former constituents that there would never be a cannabis dispensary in the Sunset. Is there a political agenda here? Why is this particular proposal being subject to an indefinite continuance, whereas other dispensaries in the city, who, by the way, do not have a focus on non-psychoactive medical cannabis, on specifically formulated ratios, were those dispensaries not subject to this situation, as the former speaker mentioned? This is just very distressing. There appears to be a political agenda. Mr. Shep is a known good player, and I don't understand why he is being targeted. This dispensary would service an area in the city that does not have a cannabis dispensary, and I am mindful and respectful that that's not the exact issue here, but that would be the result. So please look into this. Why are we pigeonholing this particular dispensary into an unworkable situation, whereas other dispensaries have allowed to run their course, either be permitted or not, following the protocol that we have in place in San Francisco, which is working? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Okay, not seeing any public comment is closed. Commissioner Antonini.
Yeah, I assume we'll get an answer on the questions that were raised by the speakers in the future as to the issue.
Mr. Starr is here if you'd like to
yeah,
clarify some things.
Why it's a CU and not a DR.
Yeah, this is actually something the department anticipated when the Sunset Neighborhood Commercial Districts came before this commission. Supervisor Chu put a provision in the ordinance that anything that was not listed as an active commercial use per section 145.5 or 4 needed a CU. That's a very small line in it. A medical cannabis dispensary is not considered an active use. We recommended that instead of doing that, you just call out all the uses that aren't active uses and put a C in the chart to show that it's a conditional use. She didn't take our recommendation on that. So right now it shows a medical cannabis dispensary is permitted, which means it needs a mandatory DR in most neighborhood commercial districts. But this particular one, because it's not an active commercial use, makes it a CU. So it's very convoluted, We did try to make it more clear in our recommendation, but that wasn't taken. So,
Thank you. I heard there was something similar on West Portal. They need a CU too for that.
actually, West Portal is the only one that's very clear that it needs a CU. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just had a couple of other questions about the continuances, because there are a lot today. Unfortunately, we will have a short calendar likely today, but we'll have some very long calendars. And I understand there were some noticing problems with 150 Van Ness, or possible noticing problems, and we understand that we're waiting on ORD with the legislation by Supervisor Weiner, and we have subcommittee members working on that one. But I'm wondering about the Larkin Street, the noise ordinance, and the short-term rental, why those are continued, because I think all of those, or at least two of them, have been continued from before. So just in short response, why all these are being continued.
I can speak to the short-term rental one. Supervisor Kim wanted to be here for that ordinance, so she asked to be continued to April 2nd.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to move, therefore, to continue items 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, 4, 5, A and B, 6, A and B to the dates specified.
And item
7 is
7.
indefinite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
guess you continue it indefinitely then.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
Commissioner Johnson?
Just a quick question on item 7, 2139 Teraball. It's listed here as a DR, so which one is it? Is it a CU or a DR?
That's why it's being indefinitely continued. This was caught
Oh, okay.
after the fact, so we now have to advertise it as a CU and present it to you as a CU, not a DR.
Missed that point. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Commissioners, then there is a motion and a second to continue items as proposed. Commissioner Antonini?
Aye.
Commissioner Hillis? Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
And Commission President Fong?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Acting Zoning Administrator, what say you?
As acting zoning administrator, I will continue items 3C, 5B, and 6B to the date specified.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, that'll place you on your consent calendar. All matters listed here under constitute a consent calendar are considered to be routine by the Planning Commission and may be acted upon by a single roll call vote of the Commission. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the Commission, the public, or staff so requests, in which event the matter shall be removed from the consent calendar and considered as a separate item at this or a future hearing. Item 8 for case number 2015-000074CND at 3124 Laguna Street Condominium Conversion Subdivision, and item 9 for case number 2014.1222Q at 1267 Chestnut Street Condominium Conversion Subdivision. I have no speaker cards.
Commissioner Antonini?
Yeah, I would ask to be recused from item number 9 because I've been informed that the property I own at 2827 Franklin Street, or I'm a partial owner of, is within 500 feet of 1267 Chestnut, so I'll ask for a motion to recluse, and then maybe we can split the two items.
Commissioner Moore?
Move to accuse Commissioner Antonini on item 9.
Second.
Thank you. On the recusal of Commissioner Antonini on item 9, Commissioner Antonini.
Aye.
Commissioner Hillis.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Richards.
Aye.
And Commission President Fong.
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 6-0. So why don't we take up the two items separately?
Yep. Commissioner Moore?
I had
I'm sorry.
pressed my button.
Is there a motion to approve the first item, number 8? Commissioner Antonini?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. On that motion to approve item 8 under your consent calendar, Commissioner Antonini.
Aye.
Commissioner Hillis. Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Richards.
Aye.
And Commission President Fong.
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Do I hear a motion for item 9?
Motion to approve item 9.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. On that motion to approve item 9 under your consent calendar, Commissioner Hillis.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Richards.
Aye.
And Commission President Fong.
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Commissioners, that'll place you under your under commission matters. Item 10, consideration of adoption draft minutes for February 26th, 2015.
Move to approve.
I have no speaker cards in case you want to.
I'm sorry, yeah. Any public comment on draft minutes? Seeing none, public comments closed on draft minutes, and there is a motion for approval.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. On that motion to adopt the minutes for February 26, 2015, Commissioner Antonini.
Aye.
Commissioner Hillis. Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Richards.
Aye.
And Commission President Fong.
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 6-0, and places you on item 11, Commission comments and questions.
Commissioner Antonini.
Thank you. I was absent last week, and I was actually at spring training, and it was very enjoyable. It was sort of like a frat party that included seniors and families with children, a little bit of baseball, and a lot of eating and drinking. But what was kind of instructive, I think, and refreshing was what I did not see when I was there. I didn't see broken glass from auto break-ins. I didn't see one tag of graffiti. I did not see any trash or litter on the ground. I did not see people digging through garbage cans. I didn't see a single panhandler, a single homeless person passed out on the street or in parks. And, I did not hear a lot of sirens. I heard one siren. You'd think with all the brittle seniors that were there, you'd have more medical responses. But I think that, we have a different situation existing here, as we've often spoken about. But I'm not naive enough to think that the area I was in was, typical of the entire Valley of the Sun. In fact, 1.5 million people now live in Phoenix alone, which makes it the 6th largest city in the United States. And obviously, they have areas with challenges that I did not see. But what was instructive is the fact that I was mostly in Scottsdale. And Scottsdale is the equivalent of our Union Square, south of Market, perhaps North Beach and parts of the Mission District, because it's the area where everyone goes if they're going for shopping, if they're going for hotels, if they're going for entertainment. They don't do anything in Phoenix. There's not much in downtown Phoenix. Everything is in Scottsdale, and that's the area by which people derive their impressions of what the city, generally speaking, the Phoenix area is, and what they derive their impressions of us. So, hopefully we can work on some of the items that I would like to not see in San Francisco, as they have been able to do for one reason or another in Scottsdale and presumably in other parts of that general metropolitan area. But I was very encouraged to read while I was away. Mayor Lee had a press conference and spoke about the treatment center for homeless, triage center with supportive housing, which I think is a great first step. We've been talking about it for years, and I think, if we can provide enough and we can, begin to have some rules, but also have treatment that, will begin to solve some of the problems that we have, because no one is benefiting, most importantly, the people who are themselves the victims of this situation. And I think that's really a step in the right direction. One other thing that came to mind while I was in that area, I read in the paper there was this talk, somewhat facetious talk, about putting affordable housing in Oakland for San Francisco. But I think there is some merit in that, because the reason why housing costs are a lot less in an area like Phoenix is the same reason why we were able to grow in 1915, 100 years ago. We had land available, and they just continued to build further and further out. And in 1915, we could build in western San Francisco and southern San Francisco. We don't have land left, or very little land, certainly not enough to meet all of our housing needs. So I think we should take into consideration all the land that San Francisco owns in Alameda and San Mateo counties, which has control over, because this would be an ideal place to look into having not just affordable housing, but even market rate housing, all types of housing, to help fulfill our needs. Because to try to think we can build it all within the 46 square miles of San Francisco is probably unrealistic, and there could be a case made that the housing that was built on these lands should count towards the quotas or the numbers that ABAG suggests that San Francisco should build as part of meeting the housing demand, because Alameda County gets credit for housing that's being built east of Livermore, 50 miles away from Oakland. It's technically part of Alameda County, but it's actually one of the reasons why they are satisfying many of their affordable housing goals, because even the market rate housing built out there is low enough to qualify for the 120th percentile. And this could be, we learned long ago we couldn't put an airport in San Francisco, we couldn't put our water system here, we couldn't put the jail. There's only so much land. So I think one of the solutions for our housing problems are to look at some of these areas that we have control over. Obviously, we would have to have the consent of the other counties in which they're located, but I know that San Francisco land has been used for housing out in the Pleasanton area in the past. I'm not sure who controls that housing. It was privately built, but the land, I think, was sold to a developer by the city, and they developed it, and I'm sure something like that could be worked out. Anyway, happy to be back, and looking forward to today's meeting.
Good to have you back. Commissioner Richards.
I second. Good to have you back as well. On Saturday, I've been invited by the community leadership team and the mission to do a walk around to hear issues of concern to them, as well as to get a firsthand look at kind of what those concerns have translated into from a housing point of view. And it actually kind of coincided, and I'll let you know next week kind of what I learned. But we've had this kind of thing back and forth last couple of weeks of stop market rate housing and the mission because we need more affordable housing, and it doesn't see they seem like mutually exclusive goals. But I came across an article yesterday in the Examiner by Joe Fitzgerald Rodriguez. I don't know if anybody ever reads this guy, but actually he's a pretty smart guy, and actually he really opened my eyes to the fact that there's both of those sides actually have some elements of truth in them, because we have a short-term problem trying to be addressed by a long-term solution. And I think each side is trying to figure out how they're going to bring the opposing sides together to actually solve that problem. And I think it's something that really we need to think about a little bit more in depth about how we solve those kind of problems, because by the time the solution is actually at hand, the problem's gone away because there is nobody left. So I think it's a really interesting article. Please try to check it out. Joe Fitzgerald Rodriguez yesterday in the Examiner. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore.
Updating the Commission on the subcommittee on rules. We met today and we are making progress. This was really our first meeting in which we are discussing items. The first meeting we just had to organize ourselves around issues. Today we substantively discussed the amendments of submittal guidelines. Mr. Jarlson made a very good presentation, and we will come back to the full commission within the next months, I would say, to report and submit a number of findings.
Excellent. Thank you for all your effort. Thank you.
Commissioners, if there's nothing further, we can move on to department matters. Item 12, Director's announcements.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just one announcement today. I just wanted to let you and actually members of the public know that in response to the high demand for registration for short-term rentals, the department is holding an evening hour session to accommodate folks who might want to come in. That will be next Wednesday, March 18th from 4 to 7 p.m. That will be walk-in only. We are not asking for that particular time period. We are asking people not to make an appointment, just to walk in. During normal business hours, we are asking folks to make an appointment. But next Wednesday from 4 to 7 in the department at 1650 Mission, we will be taking walk-in appointments for short-term housing registration, short-term rental registration. I will also just let you know that we've received, at this point, nearly 1,000 phone calls from folks trying to register, and the numbers are fairly overwhelming, so we're trying to register people as fast as we can. And just to remind folks, as I said 2 weeks ago, it is important, and the legislation does require that you have a business license in hand before coming to the department to actually register for short-term rental. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Do you know roughly how many permits have actually been applied for or granted?
Well, Well, those are two different numbers. I think there have been, I don't have the numbers in front of me today, I think there have been in the range of 500 to 600 applied for, and a couple of hundred that have been, registration actually have been issued and several more hundred coming.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, item 13, review of past events of the Board of Supervisors, Board of Appeals, and the Historic Preservation Commission. However, there was no hearing for the Board of Appeals, nor was there one for the Historic Preservation Commission.
So it's just me. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Aaron Starr, Planning Department staff. At this week's Land Use Committee, we had one item on the interim zoning controls for large residential projects in RH 1, 2, and 3 zoning districts, sponsored by Supervisor Wiener. This resolution creates interim controls intended to address the issue of overly large homes or monster homes in the city's Corona Heights neighborhood. It would require conditional use authorization for any residential development, either as an addition to an existing building or as a new building, which results in greater than 55% lot coverage. It would require conditional use authorization for any residential development that will result in a total residential square footage exceeding 3,000 gross square feet on a parcel if the residential development will occur on a vacant parcel, and would also require conditional use authorization for any residential development that will increase the total existing square footage on a developed parcel in excess of 3,000 square feet and by more than 75% without increasing the existing legal unit count, or by more than 100% if increasing the legal unit count. At the hearing, a lot of neighbors from the Corona Heights neighborhood came out and spoke in favor of these interim controls as a way to help protect the character and affordability of their neighborhood. A few people came out and spoke in opposition, claiming that this would hamper the production of housing in the city. In his remarks, Supervisor Wiener spoke to the need to allow reasonable additions to existing housing and infill housing in this neighborhood, but also the need to preserve existing neighborhood character. Supervisor Wiener made the motion to move the item to the full board with a positive recommendation, and the motion was passed unanimously. At the full board, the exemptions from dwelling unit density and other specific code provisions sponsored by Supervisor Wiener was heard. This ordinance was heard by the commission on by this commission on February 12th of this year and was recommended unanimously to the full board. The ordinance would allow accessory dwelling units in excess of the allowed density in buildings that are currently undergoing a seismic retrofit. This item passed its first read at the board. The board also heard the two rental agreements for 1201 Tennessee and 2051 3rd Street. Both of these resolutions were adopted. And the interim controls that I mentioned at land use, this resolution was also adopted, and the interim controls will likely become effective on March 20th. There were two introductions this week. The first was an ordinance amending the administrative code to establish the Balboa Reservoir Community Advisory Committee, and the second was the landmark designation of the Swedish American Hall. Last week, if you remember, I wasn't able to get to the introductions for you, but there was one introduced. It is an amendment to the Planning and Public Works Code. The ordinance would amend the Planning Code and the Public Works Code to shift the authority to require street trees in the case of certain types of development projects from the Planning Department to Public Works. Also this week there were two notable requests for drafting. One was by Supervisor Campos. He requested an ordinance be drafted to enable the Planning Department to get data necessary to enforce short-term rental law, including but not limited to the requiring them to post share registration numbers, nights hosted and not hosted. And Supervisor Tang requested an ordinance be drafted that would amend the planning code to allow for the construction of certain dwelling units in rear yards. And that concludes my report. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Antonini.
Thank you for your report. Will it be possible that we could get a copy of Supervisor Wiener's legislation?
Sure, I can send it to the full commission.
That's great, because I was a little bit unclear on part of it. If you had a area that was zoned RH2 allowing two new structures, you could have two new structures less than 3,000 square feet each without a conditional use. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding. I would look at it for that specific.
Yeah, I can read over in more detail too. I just wasn't clear because many of these are on hills and stuff. I was just trying to figure out the specifications of it, but I'll wait to get the legislation.
Sure.
Commissioner Richards.
Right, I'd love to see the legislation as well, but just to maybe make a comment on that, I'm not sure there are any vacant lots left where somebody could build 2 units. It's been the back of existing lots and substandard lots and things like that. So.
Commissioners, if there's nothing further, we can move on to general public comment not to exceed a period of 15 minutes at this time. Members of the public may address the Commission on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission, except agenda items. With respect to agenda items, the opportunity to address the Commission will be afforded when the item is reached in the meeting. Each member of the public may address the Commission for up to 3 minutes. We do have one speaker card.
Catherine Howard.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Catherine Howard, and I'm here today representing the group healthysoccersf.org. The .org is very important to get our website. Soon there will be over 30 acres of artificial turf fields in San Francisco filled with tens of thousands of ground-up tires as waste infill. This material is too toxic for standard landfills, and yet it is being spread on playing fields and playgrounds that are used heavily by both adults and children. And I wanted to inform you of upcoming legislation because I believe it will impact our land uses here in San Francisco. State Senator Jerry Hill, prompted by increasing concerns that artificial turf fields made with this tire waste may be linked to serious illness in children, has introduced legislation to perform a study to determine possible health risks and for a temporary moratorium on the installation of these surfaces in schools and parks in California while the state conducts the study. Fields already under contract or construction would not be impacted by this legislation. There is already funding in place from current programs to pay for it. The legislation is supported by the following groups, and I have a partial list, and I'll just read a few of the names for you. Action for Nature, Brock International, California Native Plants Society, the Center for Environmental Health, the Coalition for San Francisco Neighborhoods, the Coalition to Save Ocean Beach, Friends of Sutro Heights Park, D5 Action, Environment and Human Health Incorporated, Environment California, Francisco Heights Civic Association, the Golden Gate Audubon Society, the Golden Gate Park Preservation Alliance, the Haight-Ashbury Neighborhood Council, and you know these are in alphabetical order, by the way, the Harvey Milk LGBTQ PAC, and we are going to present at their full meeting next week, Healthy Soccer SF, Hellas Sports Construction, Limonta Sport USA, Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility, that's PEER. They are the group that challenged the EPA on their decision and got the EPA to retract the results of a very, very feeble test that they had done on the safety of this product. The San Francisco Green Party, the San Francisco Latino Democratic Club, San Francisco Tomorrow, the Sierra Club of California, SF Ocean Edge, SF Parks, Speak, SynTurf.org, Take Back Our Parks, the Turf Authority, and the Turfgrass Forum, and at least that I know of, over 100 individuals. I'm sure there will be more. And I have a list of the information. Our website has a link to the NBC News report showing children who have developed cancer after playing on this product. Thank you very much.
Is there public comment that you'd like to make, sir? That card? Would you like to speak during this public comment session? Okay. Is there any other general public comment?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Jim Miko, South of Market. I want to talk about what was unique in the Western Soma Community Plan, the amount of participation we had in the process and the partnership we enjoyed with the city family. When the plan finally passed, I wrote, when it comes to community planning, there is no such thing as a best or highest use. There need not be winners or losers. What matters in a city such as ours is the balance of uses. That's the essence of smart growth. I'm sorry to say the planning department is no longer helping to maintain that balance. For 2 years, I sat at the table with staff as we reviewed policy decisions in fine detail to build them into the land use tables. Building heights were adjusted upwards in most cases, giving speculators a fine return on their investments, but with a close eye towards their impact on the actual neighborhoods. We wanted taller ground floors, especially in our commercial districts, to complement the existing patterns, to, quote, provide a more gracious ground floor experience, and to make these corridors work. We gave them an extra 5 feet. 5-story buildings became 55 feet rather than 50. 6 stories became 65 feet, 8 stories 85 feet. And along comes a developer who has discovered that he can cheat his way through the ground floor active space rules and actually squeeze an entire extra floor into his buildings. What does the department say? Quote, the no minimum density provisions allows the property to build to the height limit as many dwelling units as possible as long as they meet the dwelling mix requirements and other design requirements. No, no, no. What part of 55 feet equals 5 stories, 65 feet, 6 stories, 85 feet, 8 stories don't you understand? I was there. I can tell you better than anyone what the intent of the zoning is. Quote, of course, we always look at the full context of a project, the planning department adds. So that doesn't necessarily mean we will always support that tactic regardless of other circumstances. You have a whole bunch of projects lining up to come before this commission. 6 stories and 55 feet, 7 stories and 65 feet, 9 stories and 85 feet. A gross violation of the plan we wrote. Why do you think only 27% of the public now approves of the job the planning department is doing?
Is there any other additional public comment?
I wanted to put something on the overhead if possible. Great. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Amy Farrow-Weiss, founder of Neighbors Developing Divisadero. In a time when developers scour our neighborhoods for properties they can demolish for market-rate condos, let's celebrate developers of past and present who actually developed assets that enhance local culture. And let's work hard to prevent the further displacement or demolition of the cultural assets that are still here. Let's celebrate Samuel Levin, who built the Harding Theater. These are the Reed brothers that are right here. These are the developers, and they actually did the Cliff House and the bandstand that's in Golden Gate Park. And they also developed the Harding Theater at 616 Divisadero in the early 20th century. The Examiner ad for the Harding Theater, and that's right here, read in 1926 for the opening, the purpose of each Levin Theater is to become the center of its community recreational life, enhancing the enjoyment of its people. And it actually also says on there that Levin Theaters are public utilities, which is an interesting thing. Someone just talked to me about this idea of thinking about our cultural institutions and spaces as public utilities that we need to protect. Levin's Harding Theater served the Divisadero community for over 7 decades as a venue for performing arts and film, starting off with vaudeville, as well as gathering space for social justice movements like the SF State Ethnic Studies program. They met there. And worship. There was a church there for about 20 years. But the Harding Theater has been boarded up and blighted since 2003, when a group of developers, Michael Klestoff is the lead, bought the historic theater for $1.3 million with the intent to demolish it wholesale and build mixed-use retail and condos. Neighbors prevented the Harding Theater from being demolished with the help of the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission in 2005. Some of you were around during that time. Christina Olagi was the president, and you pushed back against that project. I first noticed purchased the boarded up Harding Theater in my neighborhood back in 2007, many years ago. In 2012, the property owners took it off the market when my nonprofit launched a campaign to purchase it for $3.6 million. They just took it off the market. And then last year, they refused a $4 million offer I helped facilitate that would have transformed the Harding into a bookstore and multi-use performance arts venue. A $4 million offer. That is what the community said they wanted, was a bookstore and performance art venue. The property owners have a new plan to develop 9 condos. This is going to be coming up in front of you again soon, adjacent to the stage without rehabilitating the theater. They want to build 9 condos adjacent to the stage, which would probably preclude the ability to use it as our public utility in the future. If you truly care about preserving art and cultural venues in SF, we can't allow this project to move forward unless it also involves taking the Harding Theater from blight to opening night. Thank you.
Would you mind sharing your name one more time?
Amy Farah-Weiss, Neighbors Developing Divisadero.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Okay, public comment is closed. Next item, please.
Commissioners, it'll place you under your regular calendar. Item 14 for case number 2014.1225C at 1244 Sutter Street. This is a conditional use authorization.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Fong, members of the Commission. I'm Laura Aiello, Department staff. The project before you is a conditional use authorization to establish an administrative service use within an RC4 district. The proposed use is an advertising agency that currently has 1 existing office located in San Francisco. The planning code requires conditional use authorization for such uses within RC4 districts. The subject property is located on the north side of Sutter Street between Van Ness Avenue and Polk Street and is developed with a 3-story commercial building. The building was constructed in 1911 as a dance studio, but is most widely known as a 1960s concert venue called the Avalon Ballroom, and then later as the galleries of Butterfield and Butterfield Auction House. The last use at this site was arts activity. The project site is currently vacant, and the project would not displace an existing tenant. The structure has been identified as an eligible historic resource. The proposed interior changes were reviewed by preservation staff, and it was determined that the proposed project would have no adverse impact on the character-defining features of the historically significant interior. No exterior modifications are proposed other than business signage. The proposed use as an advertising agency would have approximately 50 employees. The hours of operation are Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 6 p.m. And to date, the department has received no public comments. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use authorization, and this concludes my presentation. I will be available for questions. A representative for the project sponsor is here today and would like to address the Commission. Thank you.
Project sponsor, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jody Knight from Reuben Junius and Rose on behalf of the project sponsor, Argonaut. As you've heard, Argonaut proposes to add office space to a vacant building at 1244 Sutter Street. This project won't cover up any of the historic features. It'll just insert a custom-made workstation and special stage that harkens back to the days when this was a famous music venue. It's really important for the project sponsor to preserve this resource, as you'll hear from the sponsor in a few minutes. This project allows a vacant building to be given new life. It allows a local company to expand. There'll be up to 50 employees that will be working there that will give life to the area's retail, restaurants, and bars. It's an area that's very central to public transportation, as you know, just off of Van Ness. It's expected that most of the employees will walk, bicycle, or take public transit. There's no parking required at this site, and none is proposed. They're just going to have a big bike room. We all know that the city needs more office space. This project is an excellent opportunity to add office space where no other use is taken away. Instead, it's using a building that's long been vacant. The Van Ness area plan recognizes that this type of flexibility is necessary in order to preserve historic buildings. And again, this is a perfect project because it will not disrupt any other use. As you've heard, we have received no negative feedback from the community about this project. And so I'll now turn it over to Jordan Warren, who will give you a little bit more background on Argonaut. If you have any questions, we also have the project architect, David Meckley, here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Jordan Warren. I'm the president of Argonaut. As was stated, we're a local advertising agency. We serve clients like Fitbit, Campari, that's here in San Francisco, The Melt, the local chain of grilled cheese restaurants. We also have some national clients. We work with Cricket Wireless. And last year we did Volkswagen's Super Bowl commercial, if you saw that, not this Super Bowl, but last year. So we're growing. We've outgrown our space at Folsom Street, and we've been looking for quite some time for a property with the right character for what we want to do. As a creative company, it was very important to us to find a unique building that had, to us, a sense of soul and history. The Avalon Ballroom, boy, it's off the charts in terms of hitting those objectives. I grew up in the Bay Area. I have an older brother that's a rock musician who attended the Avalon Ballroom. Growing up a little later, I actually went to this building when it was the Regency 2 movie theater. I saw some great movies there. So it has personal history. It has a lot of relevance to us. And again, as a creative company, we really respect what it is historically, have seen some of the uses over the past years. And I think what's really special to us is the idea of bringing a business into it that respects it for the history that it has, to preserve that, and to bring more creative vitality to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers from the project sponsor? Okay, open it up to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Commissioner Antonini?
Yeah, I think this is a good use, and it preserves an important building historically, and one that I remember having attended one concert at the Avalon, saw Canned Heat and Big Brother and the Holding Company with Janis Joplin. Unfortunately, I can understand. I left early because it was so noisy. It was really loud. It was, probably better as a dance hall than a concert hall, because when you had a full rock band with electric, instruments, it got pretty loud. But anyway, I think it's a good use, and I do have a question for staff. I noticed our action is to authorize an administrative use, but don't we also have to allocate a certain amount from the small cap for a business use? It's an office space allocation.
Commissioner David Lindsay, Department Staff. This is considered an administrative service use as opposed to office use.
Okay, so it's not defined as an office use, so therefore it doesn't take anything from the cap, and it's a small amount anyway. Okay, sounds good. I'm going to move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Richards?
I think this is a fantastic project in a space that's deserving of some additional attention, and I applaud your efforts. Thank you.
Commissioners, there is a motion and a second to approve this matter with conditions on that motion. Commissioner Antonini? Aye. Commissioner Hillis? Aye. Commissioner Johnson? Aye. Commissioner Moore? Aye. Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
And Commission President Fong?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 6-0. Commissioners, that will place you on item 15 for case number 2014-001933CUA at 1830 Ocean Avenue. This is also a conditional use authorization.
Good afternoon, President Fong, members of the Planning Commission. Tina Chang, Planning Department staff. The item before you is a request for conditional use authorization for the property at 1830 Ocean Avenue. The applicant proposes to establish a 17,334 square foot formula retail general merchandise store doing business as Target Express, and a Starbucks branded Target Cafe, which would occupy approximately 484 square feet in the existing retail space formerly occupied by another formula retailer doing business as Rite Aid Pharmacy. The project includes minor tenant improvements and new signage. Target Express plans to employ approximately 15 full-time and part-time employees, most of whom will be local residents. The project sponsor has been working with Mission Hiring Hall and the LGBT Community Center, as well as other local agencies, to ensure local hiring. The subject establishment intends to sell convenience retail and is also seeking a liquor license to sell alcohol. Proposed hours of operation are from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Sunday. To date, the department has received 13 letters of support from project from individuals in the neighborhood and the Ocean Avenue Association, as well as 1 letter of opposition. The department has also received 2 letters and a phone call expressing concerns regarding the project's operations, including loading, parking, safety, trash, and product selection available at the establishment. The 2 letters of support and comments expressing concern and opposition of the project were received after the publishing of the case report. The department was included in correspondence between the Ocean Avenue Association and the project sponsor regarding community improvements desired by the association, including the planting of trees along Dorado Terrace, storefront transparency, participation in various community events and boards, public art, and security. To the department's understanding, the project sponsor has addressed most of these concerns to the satisfaction of the Ocean Avenue Association. Regarding loading, Target has expressed intent to conduct loading before 9 p.m. And regarding product selection, Target has expressed intent to sell convenience goods in a manner that does not significantly impede on smaller non-formula retail establishments in the neighborhood. Based on analysis of planning department data from as recent as the second quarter of 2014, approximately 12 or 6% of the 142 retail establishments within the Ocean Avenue NCT are formula retail. The subject project would increase this intensity to 7%. Although the space was previously occupied by another formula retailer, the space has remained vacant for over 3 years and thus not accounted for in the department's calculations. Of the 12 formula retail establishments, 3 or 2% of all establishments in the district falls in the quote-unquote other retail category, under which the subject property also falls, or subject project rather, also falls, namely CVS, Walgreens, and Whole Foods. This category includes groceries, pharmacies, self-service laundromats, household goods, among others, and does comprise 21% of all retail establishments in the district, more than any other use category in the NCT. In order for the project to proceed, the Commission must grant conditional use authorization pursuant to Planning Code Sections 303, 703.3, 703.4 to establish a formula retail general merchandise store under the other retail definition, doing business as Target, and accessory formula retail limited restaurant doing business as Starbucks within the Ocean Avenue NCT. The department recommends approval and believes that the project is desirable for the following reasons. The project will not significantly increase the concentration of formula retail establishments in the NCT. It will fill a vacant establishment within the district. It meets all applicable requirements in the code and is otherwise desirable for the surrounding neighborhood. This concludes staff presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Project sponsor?
Good afternoon, Commission President Fong, Commission Vice President Wu, Commissioners, and Planning Director Ram. My name's John Dews. I'm the Regional Development Manager with Target and based in Minneapolis, 1000 Nicollet Mall. And I'm here today just to give a brief overview of this because this is a new format for Target, different from our general merchandise store and the city Targets even that we have here in the city. Target Express is a new small store concept, and it's designed for convenience and quick trip formatting. At less than 20,000 square feet, this store is 1/5 the size of our typical standard general merchandise store. The Target Express, as opposed to the general merchandise store, is designed and merchandised based on the needs of the local neighborhood. For example, we did extensive outreach for this project last year and met with a number of members within the community, had individual meetings with the Ocean Avenue Association, both with the Street Life Committee and with the Executive Board, with the Westwood Park Association, with the Ocean View, Merced Heights, Ingleside Neighborhoods in Action Committee or organization. And what we heard from these meetings was that the residents had needs for certain products and services that weren't within the neighborhood right now. And that's, again, as I said, the whole idea of Target Express. So I took a number of the comments and product selections that we were hearing were missing in the area back to our headquarters, and we have incorporated a number of those into the store, which is, again, it's not something you would see in our general merchandise store. Those are more of a common denominator for a much larger destination group. Again, these are seen as local neighborhood stores. And the important focus here is on localization and differentiation, tailoring the store to the neighborhood. I know that's not a new retail concept, but for Target and Target Express it is, and it's something that we feel very excited about. As a matter of fact, we just opened 2 Target Expresses, the first 2 really within the country, other than the initial test one in Minneapolis. The one was down in the financial district on Bush and Sansom, and the other was in Berkeley on Shattuck Avenue in the downtown area. And if you ever have a chance to visit any of those, you'll see that the product selection, the store layout, the design is completely different between the 2 of them. And what you'll see on Ocean Avenue, if this is approved, is, again, different because it'll be tailored to what we're seeing here in Ocean Avenue. The other nice thing about the small store format is that there's much closer communication and contact between the store team members and the neighbors and our guests, as we call them. And so we're able to get constant and immediate feedback. And so we see these stores as the product lineup and assortment not being static, but that will evolve over time based on the needs that we're hearing from. There's one other part to it that's interesting to point out is that as part of Target's online servicing, online products, the whole realm of them can be picked up at the store. So you can order online, and rather than having to have it shipped to your house where you may not be there at this given time, it can be shipped directly to the local Target Express store and picked up within your own neighborhood. There are 103 parking spaces within the existing within the development right now. But again, the idea is that this is a a neighborhood store rather than a regional destination. So we don't see that the parking is going to be a particularly strong problem here. There's going to be a lot of pedestrian, bicycle use. There's great public transit. The Muni streetcar line has a stop right outside the store. And one other thing I'd like to mention is in terms of the team members, there will be actually 50 team members total for the store for all, obviously in different shifts. And we've had a strong involvement with Mission Hiring Hall, as was mentioned. Our residency rate or the number of local San Francisco residents working in our 2 city Target stores and the one on the Target Express we just opened on Bush Street is over 80%. So it's a quite strong number, and we're very proud of that. And finally, I just want to remind the Commission of Target's corporate giving, our community giving program. 5% of our profits go back to the communities where we have stores. And in 2013, that amounted to over $1 million that was spent here in the city of San Francisco on schools and local nonprofits. And that 5% is, again, a part of the corporation's bylaws. So it is something that is written into our corporation that is paid out every year, regardless of the financial well-being of the company, I want to say. And with that, I'm here to answer any questions either now or after the rest of the public comments. If there's any questions of me, I'm more than glad to answer them.
Thank you. We might have questions for you, but you can have a seat and we'll open up to public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Opening up to public comment, I do have a couple of speaker cards. Jose Mendoza, Daniel Weaver, David Blumenfeld, and Daniel Cruzon Brown.
Good afternoon. I have been a resident of the Ingleside Terraces since 1984. I live on Urbana Drive. There have been a lot of changes in the community since that time, which prompted my joining the Ingleside Terraces Homeowners Association in the mid-'90s to bring about some change. I was on the board of directors, and specifically my position was a traffic safety chairperson. And we discussed a lot of the ramifications of business on Ocean Avenue and how it had an impact on the community. When we lost the Safeway, which was located at 1830 Ocean Avenue, there were a lot of people that were upset. A lot of our homeowners were concerned, a lot of elderly persons. Where are we going to go now for shopping? So I've seen an evolution since then. My wife and I do a lot of our shopping at the Trader Joe's, which is in Stonestown, and at the Whole Foods on Ocean Avenue. And it's kind of sad because we do have a daughter at a major university in Los Angeles, which has very limited access to being able to purchase these type of items that Target Express is going to offer. I see a lot of students at Stonestown, Trader Joe's, buying things, and I think to myself, oh my God, they would get so much more bang for their buck if there was a Target Express or a Safeway that could provide these items. The same thing with even worse at the Whole Foods, which is located near City College. I see the same situation. Obviously, there is going to be some detriment in the community. We talked about the parking. But as has been stated, it's going to be primarily for community use, the local institutions, the neighboring communities. So I don't see much of an adverse impact in terms of that. One of the things that does bother me is that I do see a lot of marijuana dispensary locations in the immediate area. And it would be nice to level the playing field and have some nice businesses such as Target that can enhance a lot of different things, including probably would even have an impact on home value and things like that. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please, if I've called your name.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Dan Weaver, and I'm speaking today as Executive Director of the Ocean Avenue Association. I've got some copies here of a letter that I've worked on and prepared as part of the formula retail process, because in the past and in the present, Target is coming in new. Target has done nothing wrong. We've worked with them well. I've worked with them well. However, the history of formula retail on Ocean Avenue and many other neighborhoods in San Francisco doesn't go well because there's no letter of agreement or even better memorandum of understanding about anything, about what role a large chain formula retail business would have in the community in which it chooses to locate. And for the existing formula retail businesses we have, they're almost completely non-responsive to anything, and they even deny that there's any managers ever in place, a number of them. Whole Foods is uniquely different from all the rest, and I'm hoping that Target will be, but what we're trying to do here is to spell out our understanding of what this would be. Unfortunately, neither the planning department nor Target has any ability to be involved in this process, so we've just gone ahead and done it, and I'd like to just basically present this to you as something that maybe should be done with formula retail applications throughout the city. Again, at the Ocean Avenue Association and all the neighbors I've talked to are pleased that Target is choosing Ocean Avenue for their new type of urban stores. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is David Blumenfeld. I live across from Dorado Terrace, from the proposed site of the Target store. My residential complex is on top of CVS, which is directly across Dorado Terrace. I'm not opposed to the project, but I do have quality of life concerns which I'd like to express. There'll definitely be an increase in litter. Dorado Terrace street cleans by the city twice a month. It's woefully inadequate, and there are double parking issues. There are no yellow zones in the immediate vicinity for CVS, excuse me, for CVS or for the proposed Target store. Delivery trucks for CVS double park constantly because there's no place for them to park. And Target Express will exacerbate the situation, so I don't know what to do about that, but I'd like to raise it. My main concern, however, is the time for deliveries to the Target store by its suppliers. Now, they're proposing deliveries between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. on weekdays, and 2 non-specific delivery times, a.m. and p.m. on Saturday. I would like to propose, and I did propose to Mr. Dews, deliveries be restricted between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., not allowed between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. This is a mixed-use neighborhood with significant residential use, residences on either side of Ocean Avenue, up Dorado Terrace, up Jules, which is the other side of Ocean Avenue. Truck deliveries at 6 a.m. in the morning, which is part of their proposal, would be disruptive to the neighborhood. It was disruptive when CVS was doing it. I was able to work with CVS. They were delivering at 5:30 in the morning a couple days a week. You got lift gates and power jacks and backup lights for trucks. It's a little distressing. And I think 6 a.m. when the community is just maybe stirring, just waking up, those noises are exacerbated because ambient noise level is low at that time. And so I think early morning deliveries and deliveries after 7 p.m. ought to be addressed. I think it's a good time to address it before it's a problem, before they're up and operational, rather than trying to correct and have a fix afterwards. And I don't know if the Planning Commission has any power to limit delivery times as part of their conditional use. If it does, I would request that they do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Daniel Curzon Brown. I'm a former college professor from City College, and now I'm just a retired crank, okay? I agree with what the last man said. Since I live at 416 Dorado Terrace, it's very noisy now. It's going to be worse with all the cars, double parking, loading and unloading. And my biggest concern here is that there be a stop sign inside the parking structure before you come out into the street, because I walk down there every day and people come out without looking. They might look one way, but they don't look both ways. And so someone's going to get killed. I just don't want it to be me. The other thing is that there are break-ins on Dorado Terrace all the time into cars. I see shattered glass every single day or every other day. I don't know what Target can do about it. Maybe put up some video cameras, have somebody go out there at night. I don't know what they can do about it. But for their own safety and for the safety of people using the street, I think they should investigate that. And there's also criminal behavior going on at Aptos School, which is just a few blocks down. Kids after school are harassing people, and they're just going to move down the street with this and go into the store. There's shoplifting already at CVS. I talk with the manager about that constantly. So for Target's own business purposes, they need to do something to anticipate the problem of undisciplined school children who are actually quite nasty and vicious. And they say they hit you, you hit them with the car and you didn't do that. And there are all kinds of break-ins and theft going on in my neighborhood. I've lived there for 27 years and I see it deteriorating. Please, whatever Target can do to stop it from going further down. Thank you.
Is there any additional public comment? Okay, public comments closed. Let me start off with a couple of questions and comments that I have a feeling they're going to be like and similar. One that maybe staff can ask: is there any alcohol sales proposed here?
Yes, there is.
Wine and beer or hard alcohol?
I believe all of the above. Is that correct? Yeah, type 21.
Okay. And what is the criteria here about signage and any exterior signage?
They'll need to comply with Article 6. So no more than a third of the square foot area in a window, and other provisions as indicated in Article 6. Okay.
And does that, one of the requests from Mr. Weaver was, and we've talked about it before, translucent windows. Is that part of that criteria as well?
It is. There are existing windows that will comply with that provision.
Okay. And then as we sit here, what are the delivery hours currently as proposed?
Proposed between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m.
Okay. Okay. And then, yeah, those are the things I'm curious about, and maybe they might come up in conditions here. A larger question I have for Target is, and while I know it's difficult maybe at this stage, but as far as local sourcing and local buying, and I realize the size and complexity of Target's footprint on this nation, has there been dialogue or effort or discussion within Target stores to regionalize some of the buying, some of the sourcing?
Yes, there has been. Yeah, that's a good question. And I didn't go into detail on that, but part of what we call localization is not only the store within the neighborhood, but products from within the local area. One of them, Method Household Products, is based right here in San Francisco. And Target actually was the first major retailer to bring them on board. So we're very cognizant of that.
Okay. Thank you. I'll open up to commissioners, and maybe some of the comments are shared and maybe put into a motion. Commissioner Antonini.
Thank you. Yeah, I live in Lakeside Village. I'm about a mile away from Ocean Avenue, and I am frequently along that street on my way to 280 most of the time. And what's been said is very accurate. There isn't a lot of neighborhood serving establishments there now. You know, there is a Whole Foods, as the one gentleman pointed out, but it's a higher price point, and then the Trader Joe's is over past where I live in Stonestown. So for the kinds of things that neighbors need, there really isn't anything there. There are a lot of very small businesses there, specialty uses, some ethnic restaurants. It just, the street was, the city spent a lot of time improving the street, a lot of money, and it looks very nice, but as far as neighborhood serving types of services, there isn't much there. So I think, you know, it will be a big success, and it might be a startup to begin some improvement in the neighborhood, and you may get, you know, a destination restaurant or some other things to start to come into the area that will begin to make that street, because you've got some very nice residential areas on one side. You've got Ingleside Terraces, you've got Monterey Heights, you've got Westwood Park, and they deserve things within walking distance of their homes instead of having to get in their cars every time they want to go get something. So I'm in support, and I will mention that it has nothing to do with this, but the architecture on Dorado Terrace leaves a little bit to be desired, and it didn't come on my watch. It was done before I was on the Planning Commission, although there have been some approved while I've been on it. Have not been too good either, but Dorado Terraces. And I remember the Safeway, and, it just never seemed to really take off. And the gentleman who spoke about crime problems, they are there, and I don't think any one retailer can solve the problem. I mean, when we have better enforcement and maybe stricter penalties, then we might get a little less crime in the future. But whatever we can do to enliven the area and have eyes on the street and people actually using the area, then you're going to have less crime, because activity discourages crime.
May I respond to that?
Oh, yes,
very
sir.
Quickly?
Yeah, sure.
If I could, just in terms of our security procedures, we will have a dedicated security personnel within the store, as well as having cameras not only within the store but within the parking garage that is associated with it. And as you said, the eyes on the street, the whole idea with the windows in the existing store actually were opaqued out from the last tenant, and we will be opening those up fully so that there will be 100% transparency. In fact, we're enlarging the two existing windows that are out there, so that there'll be even more window space. And the whole idea of having that activity between store and public street is an important function. Not only for us, but for the neighborhood. In terms of the trucks and deliveries, I had some email discussions back and forth with Mr. Blumenfeld, and a couple things. The trucks we're using here are, again, because this is a much smaller store, much smaller trucks. These are not our 73-foot 18-wheelers. These will be 28-foot trucks that will be making deliveries. We'll be making one in the morning and one in the evening. And right now, within the Ocean Avenue area, there are no truck restrictions. Whole Foods and the others don't have any. What I had mentioned to Mr. Blumenfeld is that we would be comfortable. We would certainly try to work within the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but these trucks are also going to be servicing our other stores, and given local traffic patterns, I just asked if we could have some flexibility. We'd even be willing to accept certain conditions of a 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. But again, the CVS and the Whole Foods have no restrictions whatsoever, and although we feel that we can work within that, we would do our best to work within the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We'd be willing to, if the commission does choose to condition it, that 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. would be workable for us.
Well, thank you for your remarks, and also there may be other commissioners who'll bring this up. There was a mention of a stop sign coming out, which probably sounds like a good idea, but everything else seems to be a very good addition to the neighborhood, and I'm favorable, but I'll see what other conditions we may want to place on the approval.
Commissioner Richards.
I'm generally favorable for the project. I actually visited the site when we had the 1963 Ocean Happy Vape, which is literally across the street, project in December. I guess a couple of questions for the project sponsor. Having lived at the edge of a commercial district in the upper market, I'm very well aware of the whole deliveries issue. We actually have supported a CVS going in at Market Noe 2278 Market, and we did have restrictions on the delivery times. They came, and we did talk about the size of the trucks. It was going to be a Trader Joe's. Prior was the project plan. We were worried about 18-wheelers. Even though they are 28 feet, they do have the OSHA beeping sound when they back up, and they're incredibly annoying. And not only is there the issues around those trucks, you also have the trash pickup, which we had to negotiate with CVS as well, that wouldn't be picked up too early. So a couple of questions. First one would be, for the deliveries and the traffic issue, have you sought to work with MTA to get a yellow curb put in with hours for an appropriate delivery time?
We have had some discussions, and we will continue to work on that through the process.
Okay. I guess that the second question then I would be, we worked with, and I guess it's hard coming when we would condition your project when your competitor across the street doesn't have a condition, but that's no reason why we shouldn't condition it. We don't want to have the situation get worse. We only want to have it get better with deliveries. We worked with CVS on a 7 a.m. delivery time minimum. I really strongly think that would be appropriate here, given the proximity of the residences, literally right above where the deliveries are going to be happening. So I would support a project with a condition on a 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. delivery time. I also would support the project understanding that not only a stop sign should be put in, but maybe a car coming sign for people on the sidewalk to see as cars exit the garage. I think as well, Target's trying to become a good neighbor here, and I don't think you'd have any reason to want to not work with the community. I guess if you could maybe elaborate a little bit on some of the things you envision on how you're going to integrate with the neighborhood besides the charitable giving, that would really help me understand the project more and support it even more. Can you tell us what things you have in line maybe to be a good part of the neighborhood?
If I may back up just real briefly to the sign and the car coming in like that, and we will certainly work towards that. I just want to make it clear that Target in this case is not the owner. We are leasing the space, so all of this we'll have to do in conjunction with the owner and make sure that he's online with it. So in terms of conditioning, I just want to make it clear that there may be things that we can and can't do. But I understand exactly what the idea of the stop sign and the awareness and the importance of that, and we'll certainly work with them on that. In terms of the charitable giving, our community giving, we really focus on three main areas: education, particularly preschool reading programs, the arts, and then certain domestic social policies that are important. And there are a number of, as I said, nonprofit groups within the city that we have worked with and will continue to, and we'll be reaching out to and have already had some dialogue with some of the nonprofits that do have organizations or reaches into this neighborhood.
I guess one question following on the car coming sign of that, I'd be more inclined to condition the project based on that, and if for some reason there's some kink that you're encountering, to have you come back and say, we can't do it for this reason, rather than just say, hey, let's go ahead and do it. I know these things can get lost in the shuffle. Maybe the city attorney. No, okay. I would still support the project with the condition that you do put a car coming sign there for the pedestrians. Thank you.
And again, I'm just curious how that would work if, again, since we don't have the final say in that, we don't. And
if I were the landowner and I had Target come to rent my 17,000 square feet, it'd be in my best interest to satisfy you with a few $100 sign that blinks when a car comes. I mean, I don't think that should be a big issue given the scope of this project. I mean, Trader Joe's agreed to it, and that was tectonic for us. I can't imagine that the landowner wouldn't agree with it for you too.
Commissioner Johnson.
Deputy City Attorney Marlena Bird, I do have a question, if I may, through the President. It's unclear for me from what was just stated, and maybe staff knows this, whether the project sponsor has any control over the garage or whether the garage is part of the project. Because if it's not part of the scope of the project, then the Commission doesn't have jurisdiction over the garage.
It is not part of the leased area that we have. We do have rights to use the parking garage, and there will be specified spaces within it which are specified for Target, but they have separate security within the garage, which is owned and maintained and operated by the landlord, not by Target.
Deputy City Attorney Marlena Bird, my advice to the Commission would be that if the Commission were inclined to include such a condition, that they continue the matter so that my office can research whether this Commission and work with staff to find out whether the Commission has jurisdiction over the garage space.
May I suggest that instead of continuing it, that we might want to, the conditional use is for the formula retail itself. It's not for the parking. So my suggestion is that we work with Target on safety matters and work with the property owner as needed. And you can certainly direct us to work with them if you would like, rather than attaching a condition of approval.
Can I
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, thank you for that. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. Inserting myself here because I think my comment might actually help. Not only was there some comments about safety from coming in and out of the garage, but there were also a number of public comments about pedestrian and transportation circulation. And I think that those issues are not the Planning Commission. That would be SFMTA and DPW. So I think it might be helpful to just condition that the project sponsor work with DPW and SFMTA on pedestrian and transportation circulation issues. So like yellow zones and things like that. Like that's not the Planning Commission. And part of that could also be the project sponsor contacting the landlord and seeing if they would want to discuss any changes to the garage space. Is that, I mean, I can make that language clearer, but I think something like that would help us so we don't have to continue the item today.
Okay. Commissioner Hillis.
Sorry, a question on just loading. So you plan to do loading from Ocean Avenue?
Yes.
From looking at the site plan, it's kind of to the west, on the western side.
It is. It's an existing building, and loading has been done from Ocean Avenue. There's a receiving port or door on Ocean Avenue.
Okay. And you'll get a yellow zone or whatever, or if it's
We'll
maybe already there.
work with DPW on that.
And I think the 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. is reasonable, and I would support that as a condition. I also agree with Commissioner Richards. I mean, if we put a stop sign, I don't think the landlord's going to stop this from happening. If we say put a stop sign in the garage, I tend not to like those blinking car coming signs because they're annoying to neighbors and whatnot walking. But it depends if they make a beep or whatnot. So, I can go either way on that. On transparent windows, kind of going from the east to west, there looks like there's 2 bays where there were windows, or windows should be designed to be in that space. Were there just never windows in those spaces?
There were never windows in those spaces.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your signage, the signage was a little jarring to me at first. And I don't know, I mean, it's obviously you've got a logo that people know when you want to put it out there. And maybe this is a question for staff. Are the red fins, when you calculate kind of the signage, are those architectural elements, or are those included in kind of the signage calculation?
I think they would be considered part of the signage calculations, but the project sponsor will be responsible for submitting a sign permit, which they have not done yet. So once they do, we'll evaluate that and ensure that it complies with Article 6.
Okay. So, I mean, I'd be supportive of a condition that they work with staff on signage some more, because just having all of that signage on that corner seems overwhelming to me. I think the color, too, and I know this is your color, it's red, but it kind of clashes with the more rust color above, so it just makes it look a little jarring, especially with CVS next door. There's kind of these big red corporate-looking signs. And, I don't know if you've seen, like, Pete's, I think, has done a great job in the city, although they're formula retail, and just taking their signage and making it seem more neighborhood commercial feeling and less like it's a sign designed for a plaza that's kind of put in a neighborhood commercial district. So I would just encourage you and put a condition that you work better with staff on that design of the signage and kind of where it is and the size of it.
Commissioner Richards.
I guess two additional follow-on thoughts. First one is on the transparency of the windows. You're going to be able to look in and basically see the comings and goings of the store, not the back of a display.
Correct. You're absolutely right, yes.
Great.
There will be no fixtures in front of the windows.
Okay, great. I guess to Commissioner Hillis's point, and not to keep calling out your competitor for great behavior, but when we worked with CVS at 2278 Market, we got a small backlit pinpoint sign. You might want to take a look at what we negotiated with CVS as a good neighbor to have something that actually was a more neighborhood feeling rather than like a big plaza. So it's the CVS sign at 2278
When you say
Market.
backlit, like a halo?
Yeah, a backlit halo with its pin. I would like,
Commissioner Anthony.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the project with condition that the deliveries be 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., that the project sponsor continues to work with staff on their signage plan, as well as
Safety.
Oh, yeah,
Traffic calming.
a pedestrian safety sign alerting pedestrians crossing the path of the exit and entrance ramp.
Second.
Commissioners, there is a motion and a second, and if Commissioner Richards allows, I might paraphrase that last one a little bit. The motion is to approve with conditions as amended to include a restriction of 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. for deliveries, to work with staff on signage, and then to work with the SFMTA and DPW on traffic calming and pedestrian safety measures. Is that all right? Very good. Then, Commissioners, on that motion, Commissioner Antonini.
Aye.
Commissioner Hillis.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Richards.
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
And Commission President Fong.
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 7-0. Commissioners.
We've got one more item. Are you guys okay motoring through this? Okay.
Commissioners, that'll place you under your discretionary review calendar for item 16 for case number 2014-001042 DRP at 26 Hodges Alley. This is a discretionary review.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mark Llewellyn. I'm presenting this DR for planner Kate Connor. Before you is a request for discretionary review for a building permit application to construct a vertical addition and a side addition to the northern property line at the first and second floors of a building within the Telegraph Hill Residential Special Use District. The side-story addition encroaches 16 feet into the 28-foot, 4-inch rear yard. However, the side addition extends approximately 5 feet, 6 inches beyond the adjacent neighbor to the north. The side additions do not increase the overall building depth. The third story complies with the building code. The subject dwelling is currently non-complying and provides a 9-inch rear yard. The lot is only 17 feet and 64 feet deep. A rear yard variance was granted by the zoning administrator on December 4th, 2014, after a public hearing was held on September 24th of that year. The variance has been appealed, and that hearing before the Board of Appeals is on February 18th. I'm sorry, is on March 18th of this year. The RDT recommended that the third floor addition be approximate in terms of its massing, architecture, given the mixed height and character of the block, as well as the narrow width of the streets. The addition will be minimally visible and compatible with the block's character. The proposed side addition is not significant, is not visible significantly. The project does not contain, does not create any exceptional or extraordinary circumstances. The DR is abbreviated, and we feel that the Planning Commission should not take DR. Thank you very much.
Thank you. DR requester? It's a, yeah.
Let's see how this works. So I'm not able to go back home because of the
Ma'am, you'll need to speak into the microphone.
Pull it over. I'm so sorry. I'm not able to go back home because of a rock slide, but I had an artist come draw my house up and all that. So how do I get it on the...
SFF TV will put it on momentarily.
Okay. So I had an artist come draw my house because of the rock slide. I cannot go back home anymore. And I only have 5 minutes, so I have to talk fast. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Melody Marr, and my family has owned 358 360 Vallejo Street for over 45 years. And so sorry, I live in the house in the rear. 26 Hodges is proposing to enclose existing stairs on the second floor in the rear. I am not opposed to the enclosure of the stairs. I am only asking the Planning Commission to make a very small 3 feet by 3 feet adjustment modification to the plans in the rear of the second floor. I have asked the owner to make this minor adjustment, and he has not responded. After enclosing the stairs, there is an additional 3 feet by 3 feet of open setback space, which they are enclosing. So 26 Hodges essentially has no rear yard. This would be their rear yard. Their adjacent neighbor, 20 Hodges, is even smaller than them, yet even they have a rear yard. I am also asking the Planning Commission to enforce the residential design guidelines to protect houses sited in the rear. RD guidelines protect houses sited in the rear, recognizing they derive their air, light, and privacy from their neighbors' rear yards. See special building locations, rear yard cottages. A discretionary review should be granted as there exist extraordinary and exceptional existing site circumstances. My 2 light wells have severe difficulty accessing light. Between my house and 26 Hodges is a near vertical slope. So this is what it looks like. So the near vertical slope looks like that. And this slope is within 1 foot of my house at the base. 26 Hodges is on the edge of the slope on the top. No one has ever seen a slope this close to a house before. It creates a struggling light well. These light wells receive light through and under my adjacent neighbor's decks. Light which streams through 26 Hodges' rear stairs streams to a small setback area between my rear wall and decks and between the decks. This light is reflected back to my light wells. The project sponsors have not made a single concession in the rear yard. The RDT asked for a 5 feet 6 inch pullback, and the project sponsors did not allow that, and they gained back the entire 5 feet 6 inches. All I'm asking is a 3 feet by 3 feet, and that is not a hardship in light of the fact that 26 Hodges is adding an additional 500 square feet. I am asking the commissioners to require an SFDBI peer review of the slope and foundation plans. At the variance hearing, Mr. Sanchez suggested a peer review by DBI as we are in a landslide zone. Mr. Sanchez was concerned as he learned the first 2 slope plans could not be constructed. While I have invited the commissioners to the site to see the effect of the rock slope on my struggling light wells, I am not able to let the commissioners into my house and backyard at this time due to the landslide from 26 Hodges on December 12th. The extraordinary and exceptional site conditions cannot be seen from Google, and the air and light impacts cannot be experienced from 26 Hodges rear decks. No one has ever seen this type of site before. I live on Telegraph Hill, and the rock slide crashed onto my house 3 months ago. The variance requested is where the rock slide occurred. 26 Hodges has not removed the over 8 feet high stack of rocks piled high up against my wall and have not started slope stabilization work. They have indicated they will not stabilize the slope until they receive the permits for this project. Attached are the notices of violations issued, and also the Department of Building Inspection has initiated abatement hearings on this, and all those are attached on my email. Both my engineering geologist and structural engineer reports are also attached, and both my engineers have told me I cannot go back home, and only geotechnical and structural engineers can be allowed access to the site. It is their opinion that the site conditions represent a hazardous emergency condition, and mitigation of the slope should be performed as soon as possible. The slope mitigation plans should be part of a standalone permit application and not be associated with a permit application for residential improvements upslope. A copy of all these letters from my engineers are attached, and if you would like a site visit, please let me know. In closing, I am asking the commissioners to modify the plans by just 3 feet by 3 feet in the rear for the rear yard space. Number 2, I'm asking the commissioners to require DBI perform a formal peer review. And number 3, I am still opening the invitation for the commissioners to come to my house and backyard. As soon as the building department engineers allow it, that's stabilized, you can come take a look at the air light impacts from this site thing. And I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Speakers in support of the DR requester? Those who would be opposed to the project? Yes. I have Ray Liu, Barry, starting with an R last name, and Lisa Lim.
Hi there. Can I ask one technical question first? We neighbors sent in a bunch of letters via email to support the DR request by the Marr family, and we just want to check that you guys received those. I got your response, Commissioner Wu. Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Lisa Lim, and I'm representing the owner of 29 and 31 Hodges Alley. We support the discretionary review request and urge you to approve it. Hodges Alley is a 17-foot wide and quaint dead-end alley that looks like a European lane, complete with potted plants and lots of light. Because it's a narrow, dead-end alley, all building expansions are felt more profoundly by its residents. We submitted our letter of DR support along with our neighbors because we felt that the expansion of 26 Hodges will destroy the character of this charming alley. If they are allowed to add a third story, the burden of that development will disproportionately impact those who live in the alley. We believe that our written concerns demonstrate the exceptional and extraordinary circumstance which require your intervention. And I want to highlight two main points. Number one, the alley is way too narrow to accommodate this 3-story building when all of the adjacent buildings are only 2 stories tall. The owners, the DeWilds, have been less than forthcoming with the information on the impact of the development, so we need the commissioners to step in to compel the DeWilds to provide a light pole study and to examine the situation for the objective impact analysis. As I stated earlier, Hodges Alley is only 17 feet wide, and that's the width of about 2 sidewalks. So an additional height has a huge impact on the habitability of that narrow dead-end lane. Couple that with the smaller than average setback of only 5 feet 8 inches, and the alley will feel like a small enclosed space where neighbors will look directly into each other's windows. Our tenants now enjoy light and air access, but all of that would disappear if we let this proceed. This is a dense urban environment, so light and air access are invaluable and shouldn't be granted just to one building at the cost of all the other residents. The third story should be eliminated, but at a minimum, that third story should be set further back and lowered in height so that the neighbors don't feel as if they're living on top of each other. This will align better with the other 2-story buildings on that side of the alley. To the second point, we have all felt that the owners have not been forthcoming with objective information to show the development's impact. And I don't say this lightly. We've been given vague answers by the architect, Heidi Liebs, when we ask questions. For example, she told me that the ceiling height would range from 8 to 10 feet. But why isn't this specified in the submitted plans? How can we determine impact if we don't have that data? Why is it impossible to verify the shadow study renderings she's produced? Have you noticed that there are no times or dates on those renderings? But what really caused me to doubt her veracity is when our tenant told us that Ms. Liebs tried to bribe her to support the project by telling our tenant that the architect would find her an apartment with a similar view if she didn't like having the natural light blocked from her unit. You can think what you want of that situation, but it goes to the heart of the discretionary review request. We need a higher standard of objectivity when it comes to examining the disproportionate impact on the neighborhood. We need the Planning Commission to grant this discretionary review and question the assumptions about the project that have been delivered by a biased representative of the owners. We don't want the details glossed over or accepted as fact unless they can be verified. So please help us better balance the right of one property owner to develop his property with the rights of many Hodges residents to enjoy their homes in that quaint space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Barry Rohrbach, and I strongly object to the proposed expansion of the roof deck of the building at 26 Hodges Alley. To say that we have heard noise originating from 26 Hodges Alley would be like saying Alaskan winters are somewhat cold. These folks routinely engage in disruptive, loud, raucous behavior both day and night on their roof deck, which is across the narrow Hodges Alley and just below my home. The relentless, loud talking, shouting, singing, and music penetrates closed windows. What appears to be open alcohol/substance consumption is on display. These gatherings are frequent and marathon-like, and often continue into the early morning hours. I have witnessed people who seem to have passed out on the deck, and others apparently camped out on couches and on the deck floor. At times, they will remain there until well past daybreak. The gatherings often consist of as many people as will fit on the roof deck, and who appear to rotate with what sometimes seems like an endless supply of obnoxious, inconsiderate people partying in the house below. I have made noise complaints to the SFPD, but this behavior has been a consistent feature since these folks purchased 26 Hodges Alley. This house seems to be essentially a party pad for adult/college-age children and their myriad acquaintances. It is clear that these are a self-entitled people who behave as though they have little regard for others. nor do they exhibit the slightest consideration for the impact of their narcissistic behavior on their neighbors' right to peaceful enjoyment of their homes. If anything, they project a persistent contempt for those whom they live among. I urge you to reject the request to expand the size of the deck of 26 Hodges Alley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Fong and the Commission. I am Raymond Liu, the co-owner with wife Annie Wong Liu at 20 Hodges, neighbor to the proposed addition at 26 Hodges. And we are talking about opposing this war with major reservation, and I'll tell you the reason why. We've been residents at the present location since the mid-1950s. Incidentally, Hodges Alley is just a block north from John Yeehall Chin School and the Onlock Senior Center. Despite claims by the devotees that they're developing a residence, the evidence is to the contrary. Various visitors partying on the open deck during the weekend and from the late afternoon to the early morning of the next day is evidenced not just by us, but also neighbors. Also, we see various young yuppies coming in and out during the week, so that this purported residence really resemble a collegiate fraternity or sorority house, or even the Green Turtle Hostel that's a block south on Bartow Street. It appears that the proposed floor addition will only enhance the eventual real estate market value of the property for sale by the DeWites. They're well-known real estate tycoons. We are opposed for the following 4 reasons. 1, since 20 Hodges is downhill south, we have had serious concerns about geological and foundational issues resulting from the development, since known development plans include digging into the Sand Hill hillside. Now, we have evidences of precarious perils, including the well-known history of the Eastern Telegraph Hill with massive rock slides during the past year's rainstorms, resulting in bocce ball to bowling size rolling boulders smashing into Sansom Street. During the December 2014 rainstorm, the unreinforced eastern backside of 26 Hodges did tumble into the western side Melody Marr's house at 358 Vallejo Street. And much earlier inspection shows that there's been just crude rusted mesh screen held by several metal rods was erected in earlier effort to contain its unstable character. It would require an engineering feat to establish or stabilize the geology in the substandard building vertical crawl space. There's also the indemnity factor that should be untoward damage to 20 Hodges Foundation. That's not addressed. And there is...
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
Okay.
You can submit that if you want.
There is misrepresentation. Thank you. But I will give this further statement.
Thank you. Great. Are there any other speakers in support of the DR requester? Seeing none, project sponsor.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jody Knight from Reuben, Junius & Rose, here on behalf of the project sponsor. I appreciate staff's recommendation that the project be approved. Just a quick matter, I have a support letter that we just received this morning from a neighbor at 364 Vallejo Street, if there's any interest in seeing that. Just want to give you a quick overview of the house as it is now. Get that. The living area of the house is currently under 1,500 square feet. Sorry, that's a little too small. The first floor, I'll just describe the house to you. The first floor has a garage, and next to that is a small artist studio. The second floor has two very small bedrooms, a galley kitchen that is too small to fit a regular-sized refrigerator. It has no dining space and a tiny living room. There's, on the side of the living room, there's a very steep staircase leading up to a roof deck. And as you can see, the house as it is tiny and really is not usable as a single-family home. The project as proposed will keep the ground floor essentially the same with a garage and a small bedroom. The second floor will lose one bedroom so that the project can add a functional kitchen, dining room, and living room. You heard a little bit about the side addition. That's a small addition of 3 feet by 16 feet. It'll take out a jog that's currently in the living room where that steep staircase is, remove that steep staircase, which really is not very usable, and provide a usable living room. That space is really important so that we can have a usable living room and also a dining room. Any space lost from that back addition will significantly decrease the amount of living space and the usability of the house. The other aspect of the project is a third floor addition. It'll be a 288 square foot, very small addition on the third floor that will provide a bedroom and bathroom because we are losing that bedroom on the second floor. That will provide the necessary living space and also make the roof deck more usable, which is really the only open space currently on this site since there is no backyard. And again, we'll expand the kitchen and living room area. The third floor addition will be set back 5 feet inches from the property line. This setback is required in order to provide the space that the project needs to provide the bedroom and bathroom. On the back side of that addition, there's a moment frame which will be installed in order to seismically upgrade the house, and there's also a light well that has to be matched. So we're really constrained in terms of the space that we can insert that small 288 square foot addition into, which is why the setback was proposed as it is. That setback was considered by the RDT and found to be compatible with the residential design guidelines. Essentially, it's not. The RDT asked us to show that the addition at that setback would not be visible from down the alley, and it's barely visible from the view down the alley. And so the RDT was comfortable with that, and we feel that setback is appropriate. Finally, the project will perform stabilization work to the slope at the rear of the property. There's a rock face, a crumbling rock face there now that the project sponsor has a full team that they're ready to do that work as soon as we have this project approved. There will be no additional weight on the slope from the project. In fact, there'll be a decrease in weight. There's currently a first floor porch that's supported by a concrete slab. That will be removed, and the porch will be cantilevered. And so actually, the project is positive in terms of taking weight off the slope. Any additions any additions to the foundation that we'll need to support the project will be at the front side of the property and will not be on the slope. We have here today the full slope team, including geotechnical expert Frank Rollo, geologist Lou Gilpin, engineer Raj Sahai, as well as contractor Day Hilborn, and they can answer any questions. We also have Heidi Liebes, the architect, and David DeWild, the project sponsor, who are happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers in support of the project sponsor?
My name is Karen Ezekiel, and I live at 30 Hodges Alley, which is just up the hill from the project. And I have not objected to the stairway addition because it doesn't impact my space appreciably. The other issues are not, I have not brought those up, but I am concerned about noise and light in the same way as the other neighbors are.
Thank you. Any other speakers in support of the project sponsor? Okay, DR requester, you have a 2-minute rebuttal.
Thank you, Commissioners. The noise is so bad. The noise is so bad, I have to go to another room in the house and close the door, and it's still bad because it's just the whole thing. It's just really bad. I want to address the 3 feet by 3 feet open space I am requesting in the rear. The RDG never addressed that 26 Hodges has no rear yard. They don't address the special rear yard cottage provision in the guidelines for me. They don't talk about how I receive light because I'm basically next to a rock slope. Also, I know 30 Hodges supports the project because she's going to get a skylight and they're going to do slope stabilization work. But I think the 3 feet by 3 feet that she's going to get that I'm asking for is going to help her as well, but she has been silenced, and that's okay. I think the DR requester is saying that I'm going to benefit by the project. The reality is in 2012, we already had a violation for unstable slope, and that's when 26 Hodges should have done the work. And to condition the work on only getting permit approval is just wrong. Thank you.
Okay, project sponsor, you have a 2-minute rebuttal.
I'd just like to show a photograph of the view from Ms. Marr's property, which will give you a sense of what we're working with in terms of the impact of the addition on her house, which is none. You can really barely even see our property from her property. You see the way that these that the properties are set up is that she's so far downslope from us that she can barely even see the addition if at all. It's certainly not going to affect her light or air. Just going back on the slope issue, one of the main concerns that's been expressed to us during the course of this project is doing this slope stabilization work, which is exactly what we want to do. We need to have approval of the project in order to move ahead with that. We're happy to work with any of the neighbors that are concerned about that project. It's the DeWilda's house. They want it to be safe. And again, we have the full slope team here if there are any concerns by the commissioners. The last thing I'll say, there were issues raised about noise at the property. What we're trying to do is make this a usable single-family home. And so we have really the same goal of the neighbors is to make this a nice family neighborhood, and the project will allow us to do that. Thank you.
Okay, the public hearing is closed. Commissioner Richards.
Thank you. Well, this is an interesting one. DR requests come to us because of quality of life issues and how a neighbor's building affects another neighbor. I've only been on this commission probably around 6 months, and I've never seen literally people living on top of each other as I see here, and I'm assuming that this is reasonably accurate. Looking at this, and not only do we have an extraordinary and exceptional situation in the back, we have one in the front. I don't know of any other street that's more narrow than I think Hickory Alley and Hayes Valley than Hodges Alley. I was up there yesterday. I think that the DR requester's 3-foot notch out of a 16-foot planned enclosure seems reasonable. As much as I'd love to, sort through the facts on the she said quality of life issues about the partying and the noise and that, we're not supposed to take that into consideration. However, it does seem pretty convincing that there is an issue there that maybe the project sponsor should address. We're only going to look at the merits of the project itself. So I just want the DR requester to know that and the neighbors to know that. We have a 400-foot addition on a very small house, 1,500 square feet. The street's very narrow. The deck itself is quite long, and it's used as living space. And I would be open, again, pending some other feedback from my fellow commissioners, of allowing some more light into the front of the alley by pushing back the addition on the 3rd floor and using up some of the roof deck that currently is used as living space, actually use it as living space by enclosing it. And I am concerned about the lack of mitigation on the crumbling hillside. It appears that we have a homeowner who can't live in her house for 4 months after, literally 4 months ago, we had a rock slide. And I saw the letters, so I did read the emails. I'm sorry, I should have responded that no mitigation's been done even to let her use her house. So that concerns me, but it's not going to weigh in on my decision. I think we should probably take DR and alter the project, but I'll wait to see the sense of my other commissioners.
Commissioner Antonini.
Yeah, I guess my question for staff would be, there have been issues raised about the previous landslide, and that there was a mandate that the owner of the residence at 26 Hodges take remedial measures to, even before this proposal. Is that true or false?
I personally am not aware of any of these. We have all along during our review of this project considered those to be a matter with DBI. They're not a planning department review.
Now, I understand this is all a DBI review, but they are saying that something should have been done even pre-project. That's not really before us, but I just was trying to get some information whether that was true or not.
I'm not aware of any violations.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, even that, whether that issue is true or false, the fact of the matter is the project sponsor is planning to stabilize an unstable situation that existed before this addition was even envisioned. And they've got as their advisors two of the very best, with Frank Rollo, structural and geotechnical engineer, and Lou Gilpin as the geologist. And so I'm sure this will be done to the highest possible standards and will remediate many of the problems that are down below, because that cliff is not the making of this property owner or anyone else in the picture today. There were a couple of brothers whose names I forget in the end of the 19th century who dynamited a big part of Telegraph Hill and created what was a somewhat gradual slope into a precipitous slope. So that's what we've got, and hopefully we can keep the existing homes and make them safe. So I am in favor of the project. However, I want to ask project sponsor about, there have been suggestions about the deck space and moving back the addition. Is that a possibility architecturally to do that, which would seem to satisfy some of the concerns about light and air?
Hi, my name is Heidi Liebes. I'm the architect of the project.
Could you speak into the microphone,
Sorry.
please? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heidi Liebes. I'm the architect of the project. It is a very tight lot and a very tight house. And we do currently have younger people living there because it is designed for a more roommate situation, and it's not conducive for a family right now. The kitchen is so small that the refrigerator is in the garage. There's no room for a full-size normal refrigerator. It's there's no dining room. We changed the plan around and took away a bedroom on the main level to make it a regular-sized kitchen and to have a dining room and a living room. And then the master bedroom suite upstairs, it is just, we when we started the project, we had a 4-foot setback, and we had a seating area, and it was a little bit more generous for the bedroom. And now we have a bedroom, 2 closets, and a bathroom. We don't have a separate shower. It's not luxurious. It's pretty tight. Also, when I was talking to the residential design team, Jonathan Lammers gave me a specific point from Hodges Alley. It's a couple doors down the street, that he said, I don't want to see this addition from this point. So I matched that exact point in my 3D modeling software and showed him. Do you have that? That is this. So I matched that exactly to show that you won't see it. This is 6 feet, so at 5'8", you won't see the addition. And he said, take off the eave, the overhang, and we're good at 5'8". So
that doesn't entirely answer my question. What
I'm
I'm
sorry?
saying is, my question was, let's assume I realize you need every bit of the space that you have up above to try to make this a decent-sized bedroom and a bath. And it's pretty modest. But is it possible, there was a suggestion that could be moved over some of the existing deck space, but structurally that's not a possibility if the whole thing were moved more to the rear?
we have a, I don't know if you could show that. This is an existing light well right here.
Oh, yeah.
And our moment frame that goes all the way down to the foundation is right along here. And that goes all the way down. So we're kind of stuck with this light well and then our front setback.
No, that makes sense. Now I understand. Looking at that, would shrink it even more, and it really doesn't sound like that's possible to relocate any of that onto the deck area unless a small portion of it, not involving the light well, but
Yeah.
you had sort of a section that came out in lieu of part of that deck, might make for a bigger bedroom. That would be
Yeah,
one
we could make little jogs and that kind of thing, but we're trying to make the house, it's already small, like 17 feet wide, so it's kind of like, it's like a trailer.
Yeah, I know it's very tiny, but what I'm trying to do is come out with something that let's assume we don't change the setback is adequate, which it seems from what you've shown me is okay. But if you could gain a little more space in your bedroom by using that notched area without involving the light well and taking a little bit away from the deck. Because I think you've added an additional deck or a little size to the
Right, what's hatched in this plan is where we're connecting the existing deck to the new deck. So basically, we're connecting the addition to the existing deck. So the hatched area is the new deck.
I'm just getting at a point that I think, listening to some of the other commissioners, there might be an interest in more interior space and less deck space as a compromise
To push it back.
maybe might solve one of your problems, to have more interior space, still have the connection between the two decks, because
Yeah.
you do want to be able to come up from the one to the other, but it may not have to be as big as it is because you've already got the existing one. So that's what I was getting towards. So
Yeah.
that is doable if leaving the light well, because you need that
Yeah.
light well, but making an extension to the rear to make that bedroom area, could be a dressing area, whatever you want to use it for, back in there, and it might allow you to have a little more gracious master suite up there.
It could possibly, yeah.
Okay, that answers my question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm in favor of the project, but I think that is a possibility that could make it a better project, because I think some of the issues have to do with the size of the deck. So I'll see what the other commissioners have to say.
Commissioner Moore.
I think Commissioner Antonini had an ingenious idea here right now. And I like to go over the assumptions for this project. The fact that one neighbor said that a setback of 5'8" along the alley is sufficient does not really create a reason of why to design it, because customarily we hold the setbacks in most cases as 15 feet. That is basically what we do. We have sometimes gone to 12, whatever. We have done that. I am all in support of an expansion of this building. It's a very difficult situation. The seismic upgrading of this building requires moment frames, not just adding a shear wall, otherwise the building would be completely unlivable. But having said that, I would rather like to work constructively where the moment frames will be and make it a better building. So I like to kind of go through the idea which Commissioner Antonini hinted on, and expanding the bedroom into the deck area is not a structural issue, but it's actually kind of an issue by which the deck could be sized much more in keeping of what a reasonable expansion of the house can support. I would like to suggest that the front setback be increased so that on the third floor, the opening of the stair, that is the edge of the closet, becomes a demising line of how far the facade steps back on the third floor. So the closet, and that part doesn't disappear, but the bedroom slides into northeastern direction and basically expands to encompass the entire hatched area to the edge of the light well. All of this becomes the bedroom. This moves in, this becomes a bedroom. The deck itself moves back so that it matches the hatched line which is the expansion of the deck on the north end, on the east end. But I would like to have a notch for the deck to hold back because it becomes a privacy issue in some form of looking back into the adjoining building. On the second floor, and that is a question of which I don't understand, I would like to see the rear wall of the building to really work more closely with your moment frame, because I do not understand
Can I explain?
why you're pushing.
I would love to explain all of this to you.
Oh,
there are reasons for all of it.
Yeah, I believe.
There's building code, planning code,
Excuse me.
all kinds of reasons.
Unless I ask you to speak to me,
Okay.
I have to have the right to express my thoughts. I will ask you when I have a question.
Okay.
Thank you. And I would love to sit down with you and hear you. You can stand there. I might ask you a question. Because I think the way the building is designed has many good ideas. On the other hand, I do believe that we have to stand within acceptable demising lines regarding the adjacent buildings. The issue about the slope and instability is not an issue which at all weighs into the discussion of this commission. It is something when this building moves forward, which it most likely will, and it should, that is an issue with DBI, and DBI will be on this with not only a magnifying glass, but with a supernova magnifying glass, because this is one of the most difficult problems in San Francisco, and nobody will have to fear that this will not get its proper attention. So this should not even be part of what we are considering. We can acknowledge it, we can acknowledge the hardship of the adjoining owner, but it doesn't have anything to do with what we're deciding here. However, what we do with the rear building, how far it can go, as to whether or not the building should not be quite as tight in the back, aside from its decks, which could, that is something we can discuss. At this moment, I'd like to suggest that we move the third floor back to the edge of the stair, that we expand the bedroom into the hatched area to the edge of the light well, that we cut the deck back on the third floor to be in line with the hatched area on the third floor, and then we create a little notch out where that additional piece of deck is not necessary. And that is a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Hillis.
Can we have, I would like to hear the architect's response to some of it I don't understand.
There are a lot of reasons why it was designed the way it was, and
So
I would
the
love
issue I'd like to
respond.
explore, I don't quite understand. I mean, obviously you looked at a larger setback. I mean, I would imagine you looked at a larger setback in the front.
Yeah.
A deeper setback in the front in kind of expanding the building area into that deck area. So explain why.
So can I have the camera on the plans that I have here, please? This line right here is the 45% rear yard setback that is required by the planning department, right here. So we are required to not build from this point to the back. And our variance is for anything that you touch. Anything we touch from the rear 45%, we have to get a variance for. We're asking to break the rules. So that is a really big concern. It's not a guideline, it's a rule that I took very seriously, and I wanted to stay away from that 45% rear yard setback and provide also a decent open space for this project.
And can you tell me how many feet that is from the end of your proposed addition to the 45-foot? I mean, the 45% rear
For
yard?
the whole site, 62 feet 11 deep, so 45% of that is 26 3.5.
But you don't, just how much, do you know from your proposed third floor addition, the end of it, to the 45% rear yard?
I don't, it looks like another 3 feet.
Okay.
So, yeah. The other issue for the, so again, on the second floor, I don't want to touch the rear walls, the glass walls back there, anything within 5 feet of the property line has to be fire rated or solid wall, and then we lose all our light and air on the second floor. So I don't want to touch anything within the rear yard setback on any of the floors if possible, except for the safety and the seismic. The other issue is that for 4 stories or less, bedrooms need to have an escape and egress window. So I have to provide that from the 3rd floor bedroom to the street. That has to be a direct access to the street. So that's why I have that window, and I can't close that off towards the street. So those are some of the building codes and planning codes that were on our minds when we designed this.
Okay. And can you show us, the DR requester has asked for, I'm not quite sure where that 3 foot by 3 foot notch is supposed to be, because it's somewhat unrelated to a lot of the stuff we're talking about and we heard about.
I don't know if you could get, this is the little notch right here.
Could you take a pen and draw, because it's almost impossible to read from where we are?
See that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The hatched deck, new deck area, right? It's a 3 foot by 3 foot.
So that was before an exterior stair that went up to the roof deck, and we're enclosing that area. And the house had 2 stairs from the ground floor to the 2nd floor, and then this exterior stair from the 2nd floor to the roof. And those exterior stairs were kind of scary and rickety. So we're making one main stair instead of these 2 sets of stairs, so trying to make the house more efficient.
So that's on the 2nd floor.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so just to be clear, on this photo, this is 26 Hodges. This is 30 Hodges. So this is the subject property, and this is taken from the DR requester's rear yard. So you can't see or be affected by that little 3 by 3 foot, which is behind there at all. It has 0 effect on the DR requester.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to get at, because I was trying to understand.
Yeah, it's hard to understand this without going there.
Because it's fairly high up, but I guess in her light well is further back.
Yeah,
back
it's
towards
further that
the-
way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, we'll hear what other, I mean, I think I'm, just going back to the issue of the setback, because I think I'm less concerned with kind of the issue about the notch, because I don't think it has an impact, if at all, certainly not kind of an extraordinary one. But that Hodges Street in perhaps setting back somewhere and taking some of that 3 feet, if you went to the exact line of the 3 foot.
So we'd add a little bit more of a landing on the stair. It really wouldn't.
And I'm just exploring doing that to get more setback, not to reduce the size of the deck. Because I think, if there's noise on the deck, it's not a function of the size of the deck necessarily. Cutting 3 feet is not going to make people quieter.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we heard there's probably different occupants of the building.
Yeah, I mean, we want to, we don't want
I think
that
that's a
to
neighborhood
be-
issue we're not going to be able to design a solution for unless we get rid of the deck. And I think it's the only rear yard. So, could you go back 3 more feet to the rear yard line and come back a foot or 2 more in the front and get a bigger setback on Hodges? Just talk about that.
To have some jogs. It's not great to have more jogs in the house, and we sort of have this really lovely moment frame design from the structural engineer. So it's not a wonderful design move. It's possible, yes, lots of things are possible, but it's not, it's possible. But
Yeah, I
in
don't
terms
know
of,
I don't know what it gets you on Hodges Street. I mean, I think Hodges is narrow, obviously, but there are buildings, especially as you make the turn onto Hodges, that are
Yeah.
fairly tall already.
yeah, the neighbors across the street are a lot taller than this.
Is that building directly across the street? The one that, I mean, what's directly across the street from?
I will show
from-
you if I can find it. Unless I give you. Oh. This is from the roof deck, so you can see how tall the neighbors across the street are. A lot taller.
Okay. I mean, I think I'm generally okay with it as is. It'd be ideal to have a larger setback in the front, but I think getting another foot or two and kind of going into light well. And I believe the building adjacent to you on Hodges, that kind of shares that light well, or does the building end at that light well?
Which building?
Sorry, to the north on Hodges, south, sorry, 30 Hodges. Is that a shared light well, or what is that on the other side of that light well? On the south side.
This light well is the neighbor's rear yard.
It's the rear yard. So if you do build into that light well structure, I mean, you may have some impact. We didn't necessarily.
Yeah, we don't want to build into the light well.
I mean, not into the light well, into the roof adjacent to the light well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask a couple questions about the neighborhood issues, and I'm not sure if the architect or the project sponsors. Can you tell me who's occupying the building existing currently? Is there? You mentioned a couple of different people. Is there one family, one resident occupying?
Yeah, it's currently a group of young professionals who's renting the building. We never, prior to this process, we never had any complaints that there were any problems there. We certainly would have taken that seriously if there were any complaints. As we said, we're committed to having this be a single-family home and having it be appropriate for the neighborhood. And the project sponsors want to get along with their neighbors and have everybody be happy. So if there's any issues there, we're totally committed to addressing that, and we take that seriously moving forward.
Great. And is it a rent-controlled unit?
Single-family home.
It's a single-family home.
It's a single-family home that's being rented, right? That's
It is a single-family home.
Subject to vacancy control, not price control, right?
It's not.
Not if it's a single-family home. And do we have any reason to believe that this young tech group of folks are short-term renting this?
They're not short-term renting, no. Do you have questions for the project sponsor? Or?
No, I'm just asking like who the parties are, where the parties are coming from, if it's a different group of people.
No.
every week.
It's renters, but what they're trying to do is have a project to make it a single-family home. So
I understand that.
It probably will not be these people that will rent the single-family home. But no, they're not short-term renters.
Mr. Chairman, we had not expected at the beginning. We rented it to these friends of our family, and there are three professionals, a woman and two men, who work. I think two of them at least work downtown. They can walk to work. That we had not expected that the planning process would take as long as it has, and we only expected them to be there for a few months. But as you know, housing is very difficult to come by, and they've been eager to stay as long as this process goes on. But they know that once we'll have to really tear the place apart, and after that, we plan to make it a single-family home.
Okay. So regardless of where we are with the building changes design, I think there's an issue from the ownership side to consider that you do have a large deck. As Commissioner Hillis says, the size of the deck doesn't necessarily control the size of the party, but we're hearing from a couple different folks that it's obviously got a great view. It's a killer party spot, probably a place that we'd all love to have a glass of wine and whatever there. And I think there's some responsibility wherever this project ends up, even if it ends up as is, of caring for your neighbors and being thoughtful about who the neighbors are. That's not something we can condition. I think it's some base neighborhood thoughtfulness, whether you're the person living in that building or you're the landlord renting out to somebody else, to enforce rules that abide by your neighbors. So I hope that happens. Commissioner Antonini.
Yeah.
We've got that message, and we will certainly treat with respect and make sure that this doesn't continue.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a question for Commissioner Moore. We were talking about the variance situation, and I think they could go back 3 feet, and then you would probably take 3 feet off of the front or something near that. Is that what your proposal is, or are you going further back and taking more off the front? I'm not sure of the dimensions here.
No, I'm trying to just stay within lines which create a good building. You have a closet abutting to the opening of the stair. So instead of having a residual space left there, which you can't use for a closet, you go to the stair opening, and since you have a wonderful depth of a light well, you push the bedroom all the way out, everything moves with it, and you just be reconfiguring some of the layout of the bedroom, but you're not losing anything. You're actually gaining a better space, because I do not understand the irregular adding of the deck anyway. So by moving out the by moving the building away from the street, I think we are creating the proper setback, and by shaping the deck in the rear, we are creating still a very large deck, which is almost as large as the bedroom itself, and that's really all I'm asking for.
Yeah, that partially answers it. So what is the amount of setback from the street that we gain by your motion?
It is the depth of the closet. I cannot. There are no dimensions on this drawing here. As far as closet depth is concerned, you can take the typical depth of a closet.
But it's
probably 4 feet or something like that.
Well, there's a difference, because I've heard this thing about a variance, and when you start moving further back beyond 3 feet, then you may need a variance. Maybe you could answer my question. I'm just trying to
because of the rear yard, you need a variance anyway. The structural upgrading and the expansion of the building on its own requires a variance, because you are already in the building with no backyard. So any move on this building will require a variance, period. As to whether or not you now modify the variance, you give something and you get something, that is always in us challenging it. Normally we have the zoning administrator sit here to help us make that exact determination. So do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce the procedural. If the rear addition is moved to the rear yard further back, it would require a variance. The variance that was granted did not include the third floor addition. That was not subject to the variance. That was code complying.
What was before us before this change, or is
no, the way it is now?
What you're hearing, Commissioner, is that there was a variance granted, but not for the third floor.
Yeah.
So if they were to move the third floor back, it would require another variance.
And in a situation like this, as a commissioner, as a commission, I think we should strongly be prepared to supporting those kinds of variances, because they at least create a better setting for all, rather than what just one building gets out of it, because that variance on its own is not necessarily in the common interest.
Okay, I wanted to ask maybe the architect or Mr. Junius, if this sounds like it's going to be workable, whichever one of you wants to address this, because it sounds like we're making a trade. We're moving space to the back, and we're taking space away from the front. And I would assume that the plan is an equal amount of each.
Yes.
Certainly, we don't want any less space in the bedroom, which is already somewhat constrained. So I'm just seeing if this would work for you.
I don't think it's a good idea. All the letters we got from the neighbors, the first letter said, it'll impede my view. It'll impede my view. It'll impede my view. And then when Kate Connor responded, it's really about light. That, that's the only thing that's regulated. Then everyone changed their story and said, oh, it's a dark alley and there's not enough light. There's not enough light. So I really think that making us re-engineer this entire project for 2 feet, moving it back 2 feet, having a jog in the bedroom, for all these arguments that from neighbors that have been really genuinely about view and not light. 1420 Montgomery and 31 Hodges, they are much taller and higher than this little building. So I just think it's quite a punishment to this project to have to, push it back to accommodate these arguments that I don't think have basis. And
okay, yeah, it sounds like it's feasible to do it, though. That was actually my question. Commissioner Moore, did you want to step in?
The purpose of a planning commission is, and I'm speaking to you as an architect, to hear the public voice of what is concerned. And as you might know or not know, we are the agents and facilitators of public comments. And this is not a discussion as much about architecture, except your sensitivity to work with the conditions as they are and try the best to the knowledge of your profession to deliver something which meets the largest amount of common objectives. And you trying to tell us that it would just be too imposing on you, I am a little bit taken back by your attitude. I have to be very clear about that. The changes which this commission is asking for are very minor, they're very easily accommodated, and as to whether or not it involves structural engineering is not an issue at this moment. At the time where these drawings come to us, we're talking about ideas about buildings. And if you don't get commission approval, if the commission denies the project altogether, all of your calculations, everything you have designed is basic for nothing. We're trying to help you modify the building in a manner that is appropriate to the state in which you are in front of this commission and nothing more or less. So you telling me that, I'll lose all my structural engineering, etc., doesn't mean anything. And I'm sorry to be so rough, but I have never heard anybody in my 9 years on this commission speak quite the way you do. And I have to be clear because you are probably emerging on a successful practice, and next time you will know of exactly understanding and gauging where you are when you're at this stage in the project. And I'm sorry I had to say this, but this is really annoying to me.
I think I'll just continue, if
Please,
that's all right
I'm
with
sorry.
you. Yeah, to Commissioner Moore, I think what we're trying to do, I'm getting the rationale for making this move because staff had recommended to approve the project as it was designed, and they seemed to be fine with the amount of the setback was there. But you feel for visual purposes it's better to have more of a setback? I'm not quite sure what we're gaining by the setback. I'm not saying I don't support it. I just need the rationale for the setback.
There's a simple reason for that dimension is if we set it back, you don't get a reason to closet in it anymore anyway. So you choose common demising line by which you still create a reasonable project. And even if we have a variance, you push it out and gain the extra space you're losing, you're gaining extra space.
Okay, I understand, and I thought that seemed to make sense, and you might even gain more in the back than you lose from the front, if I'm reading the plan correctly.
That's probably correct.
So that would be the important thing. I'm supportive as long as there's no net loss of square footage in this. And then the other question of the variance comes up. How would this be handled if we approve the motion made by Commissioner Moore with the modified project that will require a variance? Does it have to go back to the zoning administrator for a variance at a different hearing or on his own, probably separate from us?
Yes, it would have to be a different hearing going back to the zoning administrator because the variance wasn't needed, which is why he's not here today. He already granted a
We
variance.
can approve it today, and then there'd be another hearing with just a variance.
Yeah, he could have his own variance hearing like he normally does for many
okay, we wouldn't involve the commission for that.
That's right.
Okay.
Commissioners, I'll only point out that does appear to be about 3 feet before the rear yard line that wouldn't trigger a variance. So there could be an expansion of that master bedroom space without going into or encroaching into the rear yard.
That would be why I was asking Commissioner Moore. I would be more in favor of limiting it to 3 feet and not having to have the variance, but if it doesn't work and they get less bedroom space, then we're probably better off to go further back and take our chances with the variance because the commission has been in favor of this.
I am prepared to go there. I'm just using the edge of the light well because architecturally it's easier to do and creates a more satisfying space. That's all it is. As to whether or not we want to go, and I hear you, Secretary Owen, perhaps I would look for Mr. Junius, who has more experience on this particular matter, since you were sitting here coaching your new colleague. If you don't mind, that's not disrespectful.
Apologies.
But,
Thank you,
you
Commissioners.
have done this many times.
Andrew Junius, I think there's no question that we would agree to, a setback as you're proposing in the front that would mirror a pushback of about the 3 feet. I think we've got 3 feet of flex room to not have to go back and get a variance because we already did it once. It's on appeal. We expect it to be upheld, but it was a very small variance in the rear. We wanted to limit that, and we definitely will go to the absolute back of that rear yard line, the setback line, and pull it back an equivalent 3 feet or so. I think that's a great compromise, and I think we'd be ready to go with that.
I'm prepared to work with that and leave that within the zoning administrator's way and your way to work that out.
Commissioner Richards. Hang on.
sorry,
At this point, the
You
public
can't ask
hearing is
questions.
closed. We might have a question for you where you have an opportunity.
I guess to Commissioner Hillis's point, we've sat here on many, many projects and we've questioned the size of the roof decks. I mean, the roof deck as is on the project, if it weren't modified, is 600, 700 square feet. It's half the roof. So I think pushing it back a few feet, even if it goes all the way to the end of the light well, actually causes them to have more space. We have more light in the alley, and you actually have a better project for all. And that's why I seconded that motion.
Okay, Commissioner Hillis.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I was going to suggest the setback to the variance line as a solution. Again, I think the roof deck is a little different here because it's their only open space. I mean, we've normally seen a lot of these with roof decks and backyards. So I'm comfortable with the size of the roof deck taking up that kind of entire rear yard space. So I'd support that motion. I mean, fine, I'll make a motion to take DR. Sorry, there is a motion.
There is a motion.
But there was a motion. Are you going to amend that motion?
I amended the motion based on the idea of staying within the setback line and not requiring a variance.
But in your original motion, you had some other things on the second floor.
No, but that never went anywhere. The only other part is leaving the notch on the small notch on the upper floor, third floor roof deck, cutting that back, and cutting the roof deck back, the walkable, occupiable part of the roof deck back to the edge of that hatched line, by which you have the perception of a large roof deck, but the use of the deck starts at the edge of the hatched area.
Commissioner Moore, if I could get just some clarity, you're talking about the north side strip
Yes.
of the roof, the new portion of the deck.
You're correct. You're exactly
Thank
at
you.
the spot that I'm talking about.
I'm not sure I don't quite understand that second part of that motion. I know that setting back the building to the variance line and getting the same setback in the front. I'm unclear about what remains.
On the north side, Commissioner, there's that hatched area of the new deck portion.
Yeah.
I believe Commissioner Moore is suggesting to pull that back to the corner notch dimension so that there would be basically a setback from the north side of the building of approximately 3 feet from the neighbor.
Correct.
With the DRs, and you want the deck step back in the top too?
That's what our motion is.
Okay, so I wouldn't be supportive. I think it's not what the DR requester asked for. I think the DR requester asked for a notch. And I think we're just kind of randomly taking off portions of the deck that nobody asked about for I mean, I don't know if it's the noise issue or what, but, so I'd be supportive of moving the building back. I think that gets us something, but not necessarily the deck.
Are you agreeing with the notch? As you probably know, the notch is what currently the existing stair is, which means the existing building has an open stair in that particular what's now the hatched area. And instead of filling that in, I would like to encourage to have it partially filled in, but have the last portion that lines up with the property wall going north be cut back again, so that you're not having too much of a expansion onto the property line. And that is something also to do with privacy.
I'm not sure I know where it is. Still, yeah.
It's that piece, I think she's asking for this.
Was it the drawing you showed?
Northwest.
Where's the month?
This is where the deck would be.
Sure.
Or deck.
Sure. Or
Maybe staff
Mark
can
can do
help.
it.
It's up here. So this portion here is what you're talking about?
No.
On the
You
top
want me to
No,
come up with a
it's
pen?
third floor.
It's
This is the-
Right,
Yes.
exactly, where Mr. Junius is pointing.
Where she drew it before, in the pen.
Yeah.
At very top, right there, the very top corner, I think.
Yes.
So this sliver here.
Not the whole
No,
thing.
no, no,
Just-
no.
just the very end.
3 feet from the corner.
3 feet.
Okay. So like this.
No.
I think it's the part that already is
That's
notched
a part.
on there.
Okay. Got it.
It's where the current stairs are.
Yeah, that stays there.
But we're saying just not fill it in.
Okay.
Our
all.
drawing. Do you have it?
The existing stairs are on the north side.
She's coming down.
In our drawing,
SF Gov, if we could get the overhead.
this is hatched in. In the drawing set we have, this is
Yeah.
this piece here.
Just that little piece.
Okay.
Okay, so this piece right here. And even if we agree to leave the deck all the way out here, I would have liked
The
to
mic,
pull
please.
the deck back to here. If we cannot get consensus on that, I ask that at the minimum, this particular piece here stays open.
Got it.
And then this comes back.
That's fine, leave
To
the rest of the deck as a.
I mean, I don't know, again, I get it now, I don't know who we're trying to help. The adjacent neighbors here who owns that property and didn't request that.
It mirrors in some way.
It's requested by the Vallejo Street neighbor, the DR requester.
Yeah, but she wants a 3-foot by 3-foot cutout of the building on the second floor.
That's what part of her DR request was.
So the proposal would be to keep that roof. It would be roof just with no deck on 3 by 3.
That's good, on that last piece.
This is a little out of the ordinary, but it seems like you have a drawing there of what your request is. Can you put that on the overhead for a second?
This is what it is. It's really small. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do, but that's what it would help 30 Hodges and it would help me.
Point to it.
Huh?
So it's essentially what Commissioner Moore drew, but coming down to the second floor.
Is that
as well.
what Commissioner Moore drew?
Yes.
So here.
Yes.
So I think she understands it.
But you're just,
the second floor.
Take it to the second floor.
But you want that on the second and the deck, right?
But the second floor is the deck. I mean, the roof deck is, it's, what it is their stairs are right here, existing. So they want to infill 3 feet beyond the existing stairs. I'm saying don't go infill beyond the existing stairs, just infill to the stairs. So if you infill just to the stairs, 30 Hodges and I will get 3 feet by 3 feet more light.
Okay.
And I think there was a misunderstanding. I'm sorry. With this picture, we do get light coming this way.
Go ahead and put it in the overhead, please.
Yeah, we do get light I think there isn't really a wall here. It's really the low rails, guardrails of my neighbors, and we get light streaming in through here. And we get the light, because of the cliff, we get the light two ways. We get it through light coming in here, and it reflects to the light well, which is farther away, yes, but also light does stream directly that way to my light well, so it comes both ways. It's very tricky because I have a 20-foot cliff, and I'm
Okay.
1 foot from the cliff.
So one last question for you. Did you follow what Commissioner Moore drew?
I believe she
On
drew
the third
what I
floor.
drew, right? Is that right, Commissioner Moore? Is this what you drew?
I thought I drew what you had been pointing out, yes.
Is this it? To infill up to the stairs. Isn't that what you
No.
drew?
Okay, we're going sideways.
No.
She draw.
Just for clarity, Commissioner Moore was talking about reducing that corner of the deck only, not the actual second floor
That's correct.
infill. The third floor, it's the roof deck on the third level, but not the second floor infill.
That's correct.
Correct.
That's correct.
I'm not sure I understood that. What is it?
Commissioner Moore, thank you. We'll ask if there's any other questions, clarification. Thank you. Commissioner Moore.
No, I
Commissioner Anton-
basically did
Yeah,
not want to take it down to the second
Just
floor.
to clarify, so we're all clear on what's happening. We're moving the living space back to the line that's allowed without having to generate a variance. And then an appropriate amount is being taken off of the corresponding amount off of the front. And then on the deck, the notch where the stairs now exist only on the third floor deck level is not being filled in. That deck goes back as far as it's drawn, as well as the second floor deck. And if that is what the motion is, I'm in support of it.
I think we need to clarify that we are talking about not living space on the second floor, but bedroom space on the third floor.
Yeah,
at
it is,
least for accuracy.
Yeah. No, I was just talking about third floor.
I sometimes have a hard time when motions are repeated. I would ask Secretary Ionen to repeat the motion, please.
Okay, the way I understand the motion is to increase the setback at the third level of the master bedroom area, the same dimension that can be increased at the rear to the rear property line. So we're talking about approximately 3 feet.
Yeah, to the right setback line.
Is that correct, Commissioner Moore, for that portion of your motion? So that dimension, to me, appears to be slightly less than the full depth of the closet?
The architect would probably tell me that it's more than 3 feet. I would say it's probably 3.8 or 4, given the width of the tub, etc. How wide is your bathroom there? Just you don't have a dimension string on there.
This one.
That 4 foot, 3/4 or something like that.
The bathroom, here we go,
The third floor bathroom.
is 8 feet.
No, I'm not talking its length. I'm talking its width.
It's 8 by 8.
I don't think that is 8 by 8. That's impossible.
Of the bathroom or the closet, Commissioner Moore?
The closet itself, yeah, okay, let's be more clear. The closet itself at the end of the bathroom.
Two by 8.
That about a 4-foot closet?
So that's the criterion. Move it so you don't have to encroach on a variance.
Just to say it then, just say it.
Mr. Ionen, I'm working with the stair opening. If we cannot fix the dimension here, I would like to have the front come back to the edge of the stair opening.
Understood,
Okay,
Commissioner Moore.
that's it.
So then the motion is to reduce the third level by eliminating whatever the dimension is of the closet up to the stair, and then increasing that same level up to the rear yard.
You'll
The
go within the
variance.
variance. That will take you within,
That would not require variance.
Yes.
I think the problem is the closet length is probably about 4 feet in the
Right, so
drawing.
you're losing about a foot of depth.
Yeah.
At this level of drawing, which don't really show wall widths, et cetera, it is very difficult to say. I'm sure we can skillfully create a layout by which none of the qualities of the spaces intended here are affected. I think there's enough creativity in the expansion that the architect can work this out.
Commissioner Hillis.
I would just go, because you don't have the, I think we're getting too detailed in the design, trying to eliminate the closet and go into the stair landing. But she's got a 2-foot closet elsewhere, you could put a 2-foot closet over there. So I would just give them the flexibility of designing it and move it back under the original motion to the line where you get the variance, take that same in the front, let them design the space. I think we're kind of trying to design where the landing is to the stairs.
No, we're
and
not.
what's beyond that.
I'm trying to leave the stair as a very important element in the overall building design unchanged. That is the most important part because that tracks over 3 floors.
Right.
That means using the edge of the stair and all of its landing widths, etc., unencumbered. That is where I think the demising dimension is. If we are
It could go
going...
beyond that.
Huh?
It could possibly go beyond that. If that's 4 feet, you could have a,
But you cannot do anything with that space.
you
That
could do
is the
something with it
problem.
on the other side. Yeah, not right in front of the stairs, but you can do something with it on the south side.
I like to toss the question back to Mr. Junius. Sorry for asking you as...
No worries at all. Again, Commissioners, Andrew Junius, I appreciate the very detailed back and forth. I think we're okay with pushing the building back about 3 feet to the rear yard setback line and setting back the building from Hodges consistent with the existing width of the closet. And it doesn't have to be equal. We're getting,
Thank you.
rough justice there. We understand.
I think you understand that there is creativity in the design already and that we can manage this. So that's basically what the motion is.
All right,
I accept the,
Commissioners.
change.
There is a motion and a second to increase the setback at the 3rd level, the same depth of the width of the closet, and increasing the depth of that same level to the rear yard setback line, as well as reducing the 3rd level deck at the north corner, eliminating that so that it's equal to the depth of the adjacent building. On that motion, Commissioner Antonini?
Aye.
Commissioner Hillis?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
Commissioner Wu?
Aye.
And Commission President Fong?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Commissioners, that'll place you on general public comment, for which I have no speaker cards.
Is there any general public comment this afternoon?
I did.
Is there any public comment? Okay, public comments closed and the meeting's adjourned.